We are live on TCTV, Channel 8, and YouTube.
Great. That's all of them, right? Laura's giving me the nod. Yes. Go. Good evening. The time is now 6:31. I'm Chairman Mike Perry, and I'd like to call the Select Board Business Meeting to order on this 27th day of January, 2021. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and with liberty and justice for all. Fantastic. Thank you, everyone. Before we begin tonight, I'd like to state for the record that not only are we being streamed live on both TCTV Cable Station 8 and our YouTube web platform, but this evening's recording will be available for later viewing on our YouTube channel. Just going through the roll call this evening, and I want to make sure that I'm also watching our live stream. Perfect. All right, I can see that we've got Adam LaMontagne, our town administrator, Lori Witta, Luann Royer, Bob Stozic, Tom Smith, Cheryl Richardson. We have Tim, Jeff, and Terry. So we have our select board quorum for this evening. I also see that we're joined by Chief Dickey and Chief Bennett. Thank you very much. And as always, we have in support of our meeting this evening, TCTV, Hannah and Steve, and our executive assistant, Holly Young. All right, let's, as always, our agenda for this evening has been set no later out than 48 hours out by law. It's publicly available at the official source for town information, templetonma.gov, the only website to get information. Any others are archived at our old address. Although I have the discretion as chairperson to add and remove from the agenda, it has been set to allow for time, personnel resources, and public awareness. I reserve the right to move agenda items around to best fit our business and guests. I do not foresee having to do that this evening. Public comment and participation is still possible via the chat section of the live stream on YouTube. I and TCTV do monitor the chat section and will address any comments and questions as they appear or when appropriate. Remember, this chat area is part of our permanent record, so if it's not already apparent, please state your name as you would during town meetings, as most YouTube names are very informal. The live chat is about 10 to 20 seconds behind the live meeting. Zoom, just make sure that you're watching your own mute button. And if you're not presenting, you do not need to show video. You can wait your turn on mute and off video if you prefer. Otherwise, if you're speaking, it is the best as it appears on YouTube and our live stream on cable TV if people see you actually speaking when it's your turn to. If you'd like to have something shared, please ask me. I'd be more than happy to share any resource, a website, a document that we have this evening. I can share that in the screen and so everyone else can see it, the public can see it. Just ask that of me. And if you would like to speak, there is that handy dandy raise hand feature, or you can just politely cut in and ask permission to speak, and we will be more than happy to accommodate that. Okay, before any of the business this evening, Select Board member Tim Toth would like to lead a moment of silence. Tim, if you would.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For those who don't know, the Templeton Fire Department lost one of its EMTs last Sunday. There was a great outpouring of public support. The fire department was there en masse, the police department, the American Legion, and a bunch of the other public service organizations, as well as many, many members of the community. If you would all please join me in just a brief moment of silence for our departed member. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief Dickey, I didn't mean to steal your thunder, sir.
I appreciate that, Tim. Very heartfelt, and we feel for the Ferraza family and all that knew her and worked with her. As we move into the meeting for this evening, we have some minutes to enter into the record. We'll have citizen input and then our new business for this evening with all of our quarterly reports. It looks like we have a pretty full meeting this evening, so let's jump into it with our meeting minutes. I will start off by asking, we've got several, there are some business meetings and then there are some workshops. They're kind of a smattering all throughout the year. Holly, are these just ones that we didn't get the chance or that needed correction?
Yes, there were a couple I went through to see which ones were approved. There were a couple that just never got approved. The ones that date back further.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you for that, Holly.
Mhm.
Okay, all of the mentioned minutes from March 16th, May 6th, October 7th, the 6th of January, and the 13th of January are in the packet. Actually, did I see the 6th? I'll check in the packet just for the 6th, but otherwise, all of the other meeting minutes are in there. So I would entertain any motion to enter those sets of minutes into the record.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it. Okay, on the motion to admit the meeting minute.
I have one thing. On the minutes for October 7th, 2020, at the top, it says that Julie Richard was absent. But then under B, it says that Richards moved to approve the warrant. I went back and watched the video, and an hour and 18 minutes in, she did make the motion. You can hear her speak. I went back to the beginning, and when you did the roll call, it showed that TCTV, yourself, and Julie were not on video. So I don't know if it's a case she came in 5 minutes late, 10 minutes late. She was there,
yeah,
but I'm not exactly so. Perhaps the minute should show, rather than absent, she was late in showing up, because I mean, she's listed as absence, then she's listed as making a motion. That's kind of.
I do remember that she was late to a meeting. And obviously, which meeting, what minutes of this?
October 7th.
Okay. You know, it's far back to remember, but I do remember that she was late to a meeting, and we did acknowledge that, or I think I actually said something to that effect as we were going through the roll, and I said, well, she's joined with us. So as far as an amendment, the motion would say for the minutes for October 7th that they would be changed, that Miss Richards was merely late.
Yeah, because I mean, you can't show your absence and then show you made a motion without some kind of verification.
Okay, where did Terry go? Oh, there she is. I'm sorry. Terry, would you, do you agree to make that amendment to your motion?
I do.
Okay. And Jeff, you're good with second on that? Okay, thank you. I saw you nod. On the motion to accept the minutes with for 3/16/20, 5/6/20, 1/6/21, 1/13/21, and the amended minutes to reflect Julie Richards being late rather than not there for October 7th. Is there any further discussion or clarifications? Okay, hearing no more discussion. On the motion to accept the minutes for March 16th, May 6th, amended October 7th, January 6th of 21, and the 13th. How do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Tim?
I will abstain. I was not a member of the board on 3/16 or 5/6.
Understood. And I vote yes. Polly, please note the abstention. That motion passes. I see that we do not have any executive session minutes to adjudicate, so we'll now move into citizen input. I'll watch the YouTube live. Do we have any citizen input for this evening? During citizen input, I know that we've got Lori with us as far as a COVID update. I think we are still in a state of emergency. I spoke to Chief Dickey yesterday. I believe that we are almost complete with our public safety COVID-19 inoculations, vaccinations, I should say, potato, I think. And I think we are holding steady at 40 cases. Am I correct, Lori? Okay, thank you for the that confirmation. Okay, not hearing any further citizen input, we'll move into new business. Mr. LaMontagne, do we have any new employees with us this evening?
I do not have any new employees for you this evening. Perhaps the next meeting.
Okay. All right. Okay, we're going to move into appointments. I see that we have one appointment this evening for Open Space Committee. I can see that Mark Healey is with us this evening. In your agenda packet, you will see the community interest form for Mr. Healey. PhD candidate, Mark, it looks like. Fantastic. It looks like, should we vote positively this evening, Amanda will have another fellow GIS fanatic along with her. I do sit on that committee as well, so I'd be very excited about what you're going to bring to the table. But that is the one appointment that we have this evening is Mark Healey for Open Space Committee. I'd entertain a motion. Still have a chance to hear from Mark once we make that motion.
I'll make a motion to appoint Mark Healey to the Open Space Committee for a term to expire on June 30th, 2021.
Great.
Second.
Excellent. Thank you, Tim. All right, on the motion and a second to appoint Mark Healey to the Open Space Committee for a term expiring 6/30/2021. Any further discussion? I'll start off.
I have a comment.
Jeff, go ahead.
Actually, I have a question and then a comment. The reason for this appointment in the middle of the year, when we just did at the special town meeting, amended a bylaw that the board shall annually in June choose and appoint all the necessary town officers and trustees and the trustees for the Boynton Public Library and the Gilman Waite Memorial Field to serve from July 1 to the following June 30th. I looked and this committee has only had one posted meeting for 2020 so far. It's not listed under the boards and committees on the website. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah.
So I don't know how many's on there, who's on there. And I know that like the advisory committee, they have in the bylaw, if they have an opening, they can appoint someone, per the committee. The select board has a thing in their procedures that if it's somebody quits and it's less than 6 months before the election, we wait. If not, we hold a special election. But I'm just wondering why, in the middle of the year, we would appoint somebody. Is there an emergency, something pressing, or what? I don't even know how many members are on the committee right now, because I can't look it up.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep, go ahead, Holly.
ever since I've been here, appointments, if someone volunteers to be on, we get them appointed. They go through the same funding period, so we can have everyone in line to be reappointed with the reappointments in June. That's why it's until then. It's not on the website because it's not a committee that needs a whole page and meets very often. There are 5 members if we vote Mr. Healey in tonight. And it's my understanding that, throughout the year, if anyone applies to be on, we just get them appointed.
Can I say something about that, or?
We have the emotion in the second, so we're in open discussion. Mark, if I could just ask if you could go after the any other select board member that has something.
Thanks.
I just had a quick question too, and then I wondered if someone did end up, he asked for someone from the committee to contact him to discuss information and how what it entails. And so that was my question, is if somebody did reach out to him and chit chat about what's going on.
I can answer that.
Go ahead,
I
Holly.
got a hold of Carrie Novak, I believe, is the chairperson. She's the one I reached out to for things on open space.
Yep.
And she did call Mark and talk to him. And I had told him I would hold his application until he got back to me. And then she talked to him and he got back to me and said he did want to be on it.
That's fantastic. Carrie's a great person to be on a committee with.
Yep.
She is.
Any other select board comments? Adam, I'm going to let Mark go first.
So thanks for letting me come in tonight and introduce myself. The reason why I applied to be on the Open Space Committee was I'd gotten the notification in the mailing for like the town census or something in January, and it said that there was like open spots for stuff. And I was like, oh, interesting. So I went and clicked on the link and it came up with another link showing what was open. And so this is one of the areas that's been interesting to me for a while, because it's not that I have like tons of open space experience, but as a PhD student at Clark University, I've been focusing in GIS and remote sensing, but also in urban forestry. So I've been working, my research has been working around like studying the planting program that was done by the state. And they've been planting in various gateway cities across the state. And so I've been going out with undergraduate students, doing health surveys of these trees, seeing how they're doing, what their effects are. And it's made me want to be more involved where I live locally. My family and I have lived here in Templeton for the past year and a half. We live up in Baldwinville. And I just felt like it was a good time just to get an introduction to some town politics as well as meetings and how things work. And I couldn't think of a better way to get to know more people here in the town, because we'll definitely be here for a couple more years. I've been in the program for a few, and I definitely have a few more to go. So thanks.
Great. Thank you, Mark. I definitely appreciate that. I really, I applaud your enthusiasm. Adam?
I was also just going to add too, because we sent that out with the census about the community interests, and there was some openings. I think Mr. Healey certainly has an excellent background that he can contribute on the open space. But also, I just want to remind Mr. Healey, if the board were to confirm you today, Holly would be sending you an email of the open meeting law materials, as well as the conflict of interest. You'll have to sign receipt of those and read through those materials and complete the training too. So just so you know, before you sign the book, those are very important to do, just so you understand everything there is involved with being on the committee, and thank you for volunteering for the town. That's all I got.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Adam. And we do have a YouTube comment. Amanda Susie, who is on Open Space. As I understand it, Open Space Committee is a subcommittee of Conservation Commission. There's open spots in both, and I think it would be good to fill. Agreed on that sentiment. I guess the only thing I would have to say in response to Jeff is I understand the process question that you have. It's more important to me that we're able to fill slots regardless of where they fall in, or whether we know that, I mean, we're going to get reports tonight. Many committees have not met because of COVID, you know, for whatever the chair's determination was. If we have open spaces, we've been asking our community, pounding our community sometimes to cough up volunteers, and this is just a indication that we do have community members that are willing to serve, and I definitely applaud that. We do have a motion and a second on. We are in discussion. Any further discussion?
Could I just ask a question of clarity? Maybe Jeff can answer it. Is it policy? Is that what he's saying? So do we need to change anything as a select board to be more inclusive going forward?
As I said, you just went to town meeting and got a bylaw amended, town meeting vote. If we're not going to follow these policies, these bylaws, then take them off the books or amend them so they can fit, appoint anybody at any point in time during the year. But right now it says one thing and we're doing the opposite.
Does it cost money, Jeff,
To do a bylaw,
to change it?
it has to go to town meeting and then it goes to the Attorney General's office.
Yeah, if I could respond, I'm a little bit, I guess, don't understand what you're trying to bring up, Jeff. If you're saying that we're violating a bylaw by accepting, by trying to fill a position this evening, I don't understand. You're going to have to help out with a little bit, because you're telling me if we vote in the positive and bring Mark into the team, that we're violating a bylaw. And I don't feel like violating a bylaw.
I'm just saying that on top, the bylaw that we just asked town meeting to, they said we will make our appointments in June. It doesn't specify, there's certain committees you do in June. Can we do the rest here? It's just adding up with all the policies and the things that we put in writing, and then we turn around and we ignore them. It's almost like we put stuff on paper just so we can say, see, we got this and this and this, and then we throw it in the trash can and do what we want when we want. My point is, we should be putting more effort into following our written policies and procedures, or change them, one of the two. That's all I have to say on this.
I would
This
move to
keeps
change.
coming up, and I just going to keep pointing it out.
I understand what you're saying, but I, for what we're trying to do this evening and fill a vacancy, you're bending the bylaw to say, hey, I don't think we should be doing this right now. They should all be in June. If the letter of the law says that, then that's very restrictive. And I think what we're doing this evening is outside of the scope of it. All has to happen in June. If we need to amend something so it actually allows us the flexibility to not just do it in June, like you mentioned with advisory, they can appoint and otherwise, then that's something to Terry's point, is to basically say, hey, we need to tweak that to allow the flexibility to be able to fill vacancies. I did not think that we were going to get into a bylaw argument within the second thing on our agenda this evening, when I don't really think that it has a whole. I get what you're saying, and you sit on the bedrock of understanding our bylaws very well, probably better than anyone else on this board. But I don't think that you can grab onto that this evening and look at this guy who's a PhD candidate willing to donate some time to a committee that doesn't even meet that often, as you had pointed out. So I get what you're saying. I disagree for what we're trying to do this evening, but I do agree with you if we have to shore up our bylaws to make sure that we do have the flexibility that we need, like right now. Adam, you have your hand up. Actually, Adam, I feel like I need to allow Jeff a rebuttal if he needs to.
I've made my point. It's just another item to point out that, again, we have policies. We say we're going to do this and this, and then we turn around and do something else. If we want a free will like that, then amend the policy or the bylaw or abolish them. It's like someone said at town meeting, you don't enforce your town bylaws with fines and stuff, so just get rid of them. I mean, and it just keeps adding up. And it's not just this board. This has happened, this has happened a lot. And
Okay.
I think it's to the point where, well, you just do it this way all the time, so just keep doing it. And I don't care if he had 4 doctorates. It's not about him and what he bring to the table or not. It's what's on paper, our policies and our procedures, and when we're gonna follow them or not. Somebody wants to do something on town common, well, you gotta do this, this, and this. We follow that, but then when it's our turn, it seems like we just throw it in the trash can, so.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Go ahead, Adam.
My suggestion is to appoint Mr. Healey as an associate member of Open Space, and then come June, he could be a full member, voting member at that point. That way he gets the experience on there and will be address Jeff's concern as well. That way Mr. Healey won't be held back. He'll get the knowledge, he'll be able to participate, and come June, we could roll him on as a full member.
I think that's a good recommendation if it's founded in, to take a page out of Jeff's argument this evening. Are we allowed to do that?
I don't see why not. He's an associate member. He wouldn't be a full member of the board. And quite frankly, that way he gets the knowledge being on the open space. As we talked about, he is a great candidate, and come June, we could put him on as a full member.
Okay, who made the original motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yep, please, Holly.
can I ask Jeff for some clarification on which bylaw changed and when? Because this has been the policy since I've been
So
here.
Holly, at this point, I would like to take that portion of the argument offline, because I think if we need to take a look at strengthening the bylaw to handle the situation that we have this evening, I'd like to have that as a not an offline discussion, but basically do the research on it and then come up with, I think we need to strengthen that rather than go along. We got a long agenda this evening. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. Who made the original motion?
I did.
Okay. Are you willing to, would you like to stick with your motion, or are you willing to, or do you want to, don't have to, but do you want to adjust your motion to what Adam's recommendation is?
That's a great question.
And we're still in discussion. I think that we are going along by appointing our volunteer Mark this evening. We're not violating anything. We're filling a committee that is not currently meeting right now, but we're filling it, as Amanda had said online. So I wouldn't recommend it, but you made the motion.
I
It's
don't
up to you.
believe, again, I don't believe we're violating anything that by the motion, original motion, correct? That's what you're saying? Because when listening to Jeff, there were certain exceptions to the bylaw, from what I understand, when I was listening to what he said. So it doesn't seem like we're in violation. I do like Adam's suggestion, but I think I'm going to stick with the original motion, because I'm truthfully, I'm excited and I'm very grateful that he came forward, and I think that, you know, we should just go forward. And then if we
I'm gonna call a point of order here, and I'm going to make a motion that we table this appointment until we can do further research.
In the motion to table, I think that's an automatic vote. No discussion.
Well, I would have to have the agreement. If the motion's already been made, I basically called a point of order in a motion to table to the next business meeting.
then I would make the amended motion that he be an associate, because he should be able
All
to
right,
go.
so
to a
the
meeting.
motion that I have out there is I just made a motion to table. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion. The motion to table has been seconded. Any discussion on my motion to table the appointment until the next meeting?
So if we vote no, can we make the amendment to appoint him as an associate?
At this point, no, because I'm upset with how this is going. I hate wasting Mr. Healey's time. As we had talked about community involvement, but Jeff has now sowed some doubt in terms of how we are going about these. And rather than have this all play out as this big bylaw fight, then let's get our ducks in line. Let's get the right information. And then whether Mr. Healey wants us to join us for the next meeting when we would appoint him, that'll be fine. But what I'm doing right now is I'm killing it, or I'm proposing that we table it until the next meeting. So if we did that, your original motion wouldn't matter. Any further discussion on the motion to table? Hearing none on the motion to table this open space appointment. How do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry? If you vote yes, then we, and Tim does, then we table it. If you vote no, and if you vote no and and your no vote carries, that means we go back to your original, which we would be voting on approving the appointment.
And then could we amend the original?
That would be your choice. The motion that's on the table right now is to table.
No, I vote no.
Okay, Tim?
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries 3-1 to table. Mr. Healey, I apologize for wasting your time this evening. I think it's absolutely excellent that you're volunteering. I'd ask Holly if you could keep Mr. Healey apprised of our situation, and then Adam, let's just figure out how we can frame that. Perhaps we can use Mr. Bennett's expertise with the bylaws to figure out the way forward with that.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Mark. Have a great evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, we're going to move on to the capital planning recommendations. And this evening we have the chair of the advisory committee with us, Tom Smith. Good evening, Tom.
Good evening, Chairman Curry.
I'm ready to share that screen as you had requested. So the floor is yours, and just let me know what you would like me to show, if anything.
Would like to bring up the capital planning committee's report for from FY22 capital planning recommendations. We can review over that.
Okay, can you see the document?
Yes.
All right, perfect.
Okay, basically, we'll start off. We were formed as a committee and tasked with looking at numerous requests from various departments. We did put together a process where we were fortunate enough to start with some electronic forms that Holly had transformed the written ones to where they were submitted electronically, which did kind of create a little bit of a confusion at first with some of the department heads. Not really confusion, but different than in the past. However, I think that certainly moving forward, it's helpful to have that information electronically so we can see it, get them to put more information on these requests so it better educates the capital planning committee as they're making the reviewing the requests. We did have a number of requests that as we go through, you'll see on the form. As you go down, we basically used items provided by the town along with the department head's input to develop a set of recommendations that will be given here to you tonight. I believe that you have in your packets. Things that we looked for was the benefit of the community of Templeton and the 4 villages be responsive to the department heads' priorities. We asked them to prioritize their requests along with submitting them. We look to also integrate the needs of the departments into a cohesive plan for sustainment, not only looking at what they'd received in the past that went with this, but present, as well as their plans for future endeavors with these requests. We had 3 phases and preparing the report. We started with the preparation where we reviewed the materials. We had the department reviews, and department heads, if we had questions for them, they did get us the additional information. And then we sat down in a couple meetings and finalized our final development plans. As you see in the section 2, department narratives, we had various committees. Some attended meetings with submissions, and some did not. In my mind, showing that they probably don't have any capital projects that they plan to or items that they're looking for this year. The first one that actually on the list that did have projects was with sewer superintendent Bob McDonald. Presented 4 requests coming from the sewer department, and I believe all 4 of these, as we'll show, did come from the retained earnings in the following order. He was looking to do some transformer engineering in the amount of $50,000, as well as pump station upgrades at Maple Street, Crowdy Ave, and Plant Road in the amount of $225,000, and then also replace the circulation system at the treatment plant at the amount of $50,000. Stated all the requests had gone by the sewer commissioners and as well as members of the capital planning were able to ask questions and any extra information that we needed on these requests. Development services, Director Laurie Wood presented a capital request for $35,000 to obtain either a newer or used SUV style vehicle used as a shared vehicle in the developmental services department and the assessors department. Under emergency management, the DPW director, Bob Sozak, submitted a restoration proposal in the amount of $457,500 for the emergency management building. Thought the possibility this might be a good CPC project with the historical significance of the building. Police Chief Michael Bennett presented 6 capital items to us. Cruiser replacement coming out of taxation, which would keep up with their yearly vehicle replacement plan. Body armor replacement. Again, continuing with a past process of replacing the body armor for out of taxation for the remaining expired vests. Portable radio replacements, 9 portables that pretty much reached the end of their useful life for public safety. Computer replacements for the outdated computers in the station. And the following 2 replacement of an antenna on Ladder Hill, as well as a purchase of a repeater system to expand radio communication in the area of town where the transmission's poor. Both of these items would be looking to come out of the 911 grant that he does receive yearly, I believe. As we go down further, Fire Chief Dickey presented his capital items, looking to continue replacing his SCBA breathing apparatus. Coming out of taxation, he was looking to replace the remainder ones. The cost of $126,000, which would be 18 units. The final station portion of the vehicle exhaust systems looking to be purchased, installed at a cost of $35,000. A new compressor for station, I believe it's down station 2, would replace the current antique compressor that's no longer to be safely adjusted to fill the air pack bottles. Having this, as he pointed out, was something that would be a safety issue down there. Looking to purchase 2 PPE washers, as well as 2 PPE dryers out of taxation. Looking to purchase ambulance computers, the amount of $10,000. This would be able to possibly come out of ambulance return receipts. Station upgrades for security, a replacement of 5,000 feet of 4-inch hose, supply hose, as well as 3,000 feet of 2.5 fire attack hose.
Tom, if there are questions, would you prefer questions at the end of your report or along the way?
No, if there's questions, feel free along the way. That's
Okay.
going to go into the ones we're recommending in that as we get further. So if it's a recommendation question, but otherwise,
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that the board knew when and where they could ask questions if they had any.
yeah, basically, I just wanted to make sure that you knew what they had requested. And then as we go further down, we are going to get into the ones that were recommended, whether they were recommended to come out of taxation, out of the 525 that we were taxed with trying to stay within, or the rest.
Yep, understood. Please proceed.
Okay, and the last thing he had requested was a purchase of a utility truck, the amount of $70,000 to replace the 36-year-old truck that they currently use for in the department. He also went over his current fleet and answered any questions or comments that we had and provided us with some additional information. TCTV presented the following requests. All those would come out of cable retained earnings, equipment upgrades, live streaming warranty support, Scout Hall furnishings, relocation of EMR fiber with the cost of $5,000, TCTV website build out and VPN, broadcast support server, and town hall camera system upgrades. DPW, both Department of Public Works, Director Bob Sozak, got to spend quite a bit of time with us, being that he was submitting both DPW and building and grounds. As we go down the list, he's looking to continue with the MS4 work, which is continue compliance with EPA regulations. And probably, as we talked about, should eventually be placed into a yearly thing if it's going to be a year-to-year regulation thing. A replacement of H1 in the amount of $32,000. That would be the DPW director's vehicle, with the possibility of that vehicle going to another department. Lost the screen share. Oh, there we go. Purchase of a highway foreman's truck with a lift gate. Purchase of a 6-wheel dump truck in Sander. Purchase of a trackless sidewalk machine and over-the-rail mower, which would replace the current machine, which is quickly failing and needing numerous repairs. Design and repair of the Hamlet Mill Bridge is a project that he's looking to entertain. Purchase of a smoke machine used to detect leaks in the exhaust lines, the vehicles, as well as a transmission flusher to be used when flushing town vehicle transmissions. Replace and upgrade the electrical panels in Town Hall to do away with some of the, I believe to be fuse wirings. Replace the zero-turn mower, the cat shelter roof replacement, as well as the painting of the cat shelter. The second floor fire escape, who's looking to replace at 2 School Street. This would be replacing both the stairs down and the landing at the bottom. Update and remodel the upstairs kitchen and the fire station at Station 2. Then he went into a parking lot replacement. He had numerous options to replace basically the lots at the town hall. Up 2 options there. Doing the Templeton Center Fire Station, doing the Baldwinville Fire Station parking lot repairs, as well as the DPW parking lot repairs. He's looking to replace an unsafe backhoe that currently steers one way and goes the other, as well as the installation of de-icing cables at the Templeton Center Fire Station. Replacement of fencing around Gilman Way Park was a project he presented, along with the installation of irrigation at Gilman Way and finishing the plumbing and electrical and framing of all essentials at Gilman Way concession stand. Again, as with the other department heads, he was very willing to give us any additional information we could need and answer any questions that we had during the process. He also did bring up 2 other projects, which would be the senior center needing a complete roof replacement at the senior center, as well as the town hall cupola replacement in the amount of $80,500. Those were the projects that we were presented with, reviewed. We did have, as you'll see in section 3, I broke it down to the ones that we felt were possible to come out of other accounts. Therefore, we felt they should be steered in those directions so as not to use up the minimal amount of capital planning money that we had to put towards the projects. The ones here go along with the remainder of on the next page. I'm not going to read them all down again. We recommended they come from some sources from the cable fund, the 911 grant, ambulance return receipts, the sewer retained earnings, possible CPC projects, some they had previously indicated they were working with different agencies, and the last 2, the 6-wheel dump truck and the sidewalk machine, we recommended a separate town meeting articles with a separate funding source outside of what we were recommending for tax impacting requests. Any questions so far, Chairman Curry, as far as those before I get into the tax impacting ones that we put forward as a committee?
Did you have any guidance on ambulance receipts and the amount of funding to the chief's request? If the chief had I mean, I can back that up to the fire department. The fire department had quite a few high dollar ones. I don't think I need to remind everybody that's on tonight that the ambulance, having ALS, the biggest part about that is to be able to fund capital items. Did you have any kind of guidance, or were you making just recommendations in this section?
The one thing that was requested and talked about with the ambulance return receipts account were the ambulance patient care computers, which basically without those, there's no billing, which equates to no income coming into the return receipt account. So I think it was, I know the chief had put the possible use of the ambulance return receipts. I'm certainly familiar with them. And I think I'd also, suggested to the committee that without these, there would be no return receipt account. So it's kind of a entry level item.
Chief, yeah, absolutely. I guess the follow-up question I would have then I'll let the chief have the floor is, do you think if the only item on here is 10,000, do you think that's good use, or do we need to stay the course with how we've been managing it?
I think that.
Well, I mean, the answer was the chief.
Okay.
Was for the chief.
So at I mean, I hate to say 10,000 is minimal, but for the computers and how long we're hoping to get for them at that cost, I do feel that's good use of the money. Like Tom has stated, without being able to do the billing, and these computers do all of our patient care reports, which generates our income. Without those, if we have problems with the ones we have now, which are at the end of life, then it makes it much more difficult to get those reports done to the billing stage. And the faster we get our run reports in, the better billing that we're able to get. So yes, I do feel that it is a good investment into the future. As far as the ambulance reserve receipt account goes, before Adam became town administrator working with Carter, we were not using everything we were bringing in every year in hopes to get that account up for the big ticket items, so that maybe the next ambulance we get to, if we can't quite pay cash for it yet, we get to put a larger down payment on, so that our lease payment is less, or less years, or less per year. Taking this 10,000 out, I don't really think impacts that greatly for that, and they are very needed for what we're doing at this point in time.
Chief, thanks for that. That completely answers my question, and helps some understanding for it. I think you need everything on that, life cycle management aside, just the life of everything. I want everyone to get everything that's on their list. And it's how we wind up paying for it. So excellent job answering that question. Thank you. Any other questions on that, on this section before Tom moves on into tax impacting requests?
Just as a follow-up,
Go ahead, Jeff.
if you go, the intent of the ambulance receipts and the guidance from the DOR is when you charge fees for a service, it's supposed to support that service rather than just raise general revenue. So why we have not been using ambulance receipts for more ambulance stuff and seeing a budget presented and get reduced because lack of funding, when ambulance receipts money is sitting there unused. This makes perfect sense. I've been waiting to see something like this come along. They're computers to support the ambulance service. They're coming from fees that are paid to support the ambulance service. I mean, this is like a no-brainer. And if it's a little more, I believe there's several $100,000 in there right now, and we'll see that later on with the financial report. But there's more than enough money in the receipts to cover the cost of this. It's a no-brainer. It's paying for itself. And if you can't build, then you don't generate those funds and you stop being self-supporting, or pretty much self-supporting, other than salaries and bennies. But this makes perfect sense. It's like a no-brainer. Anything ambulance required, training, medicine, security, things like that, it's ambulance receipt related. So use the fees to support the service to pay for it. It's like a no-brainer.
Agreed, Jeff. I think that part of that answer lies within how Chief Dickey answered that question, to be able to say all of that ambulance receipt money is going towards the benefit department. It's how it's being used right now for current need, for his operating expenses, and the future of that fund to be able to do what Chief Dickey would like it to see it do. So I feel that management of it is working for the town. But like you said, I know it doesn't ring with how people interpreted how we were going to manage that, but it's working to how Chief Dickey is running his department right now. And I think I agree with you, Jeff. I like seeing that we're tacking stuff onto it. Okay, Tom, we're ready to move into tax impacting.
Okay, the next section that I had was the tax impacting requests. We out of the requests we had, we were able to put together 15 items and projects that we felt were important for capital items to be replaced and purchased. We were able to put these projects together before we exceeded the basic limit that we were given. We did go over by a little bit, but as we felt strongly enough and were confident enough in Adam's skills that he could come up with an extra $810 out of what we went over, which with all these projects, I felt was pretty good. Tax impacting requests that we came up with was to replace 10 of the fire department SCBA breathing apparatus. He had requested 18. However, we felt that doing a second year with 10 would give him replacement of pretty much 2 more vehicles worth of SCBA's with the estimated expenditure of $70,000. We felt that the fire station exhaust system, the installation of the final Plymouth vent system was extremely important, especially with the ongoing cancer initiatives throughout the fire service nowadays, that they finally have come around and started making sure that departments are able to work on these exhaust systems and have them. I was breathing air compressor. Anytime you get a high pressure system that's currently unsafe, we felt it was an immediate safety item that should be replaced. Not only being needed that you have to fill your air bottles, but also to avoid the possibility of any injuries at the fire station filling tanks. The hose, again, replacing unreliable fire hose, both in the 4-inch and the 2.5-inch attack hose. We felt that replacing these hoses, many of them have been on the department longer than Chief Dickey has, these same hoses. They go back many years, and they're just not having a hose when you go into a building or a hose line to provide water. The committee felt that it certainly wasn't something that we wanted to say he asked for and was not given on a safety aspect and then have something happen. Police department cruiser, we look to continue the replacement program that seems to be in place, and according to Chief Bennett, seems to be working quite well at the amount of $56,000. The police department body armor, having the vests, the replacement vests were also a contractual obligation to have them, the body armor supplied to the officers. Portable radio replacement was a immediate communication safety issue. If you are using a radio that either isn't compatible with the other departments, with the other frequencies, or just plain isn't reliable, that certainly is that's basically for the police department, that can be their lifeline to the dispatcher to get out where they are or a location. So we felt that was an important recommendation.
Quick question on those portable radio replacements. Does that include the entire suite? Is that just within police, or does that have some interoperability concerns for emergency management and or fire, who might also use the same handhelds?
That would they'd be replacing, I believe it was 8 portable radios that had been submitted to us. They would be able to communicate with police, fire, emergency management, as far as compatibility wise. Other than that, the radios that he does have may have been able to be down to the CERT team or that item.
I can either Chief Bennett can come online now, or I can ask him during his report. I just wondered, interoperability wise, if he winds up replacing his stuff, will it add backwards compatibility to the other members that use those handhelds in town? Hi, Chief.
Good evening, Chair. All the radios in town, back in 2010, Mr. Smith was here at that time. I did a rather large Homeland Security grant, and that's where we put in our new radio system. So these radios are compatible with emergency management, with fire. They are not compatible with highway department. But highway department can have direct contact with dispatch center, and they can relay the information to us.
Thanks, Chief. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
DPW, Tom?
Yeah, the DPW recommendations, we recommended continuing to the MS4 stormwater management, which is a federal guideline, the amount of $30,000. We obviously felt that this was something that we needed to continue to comply with. We recommended the replacement of the highway superintendent's vehicle, H1. We did look at the vehicle and the age of it, and did recognize that he is out and about and responding to incidents at the highway department, as well as needing a reliable vehicle year round that can go pretty much everywhere throughout town. We did feel the replacement of the highway foreman's vehicle with a safer vehicle was important enough to recommend. This will have a lift gate on it, which down the road could potentially assist with avoiding back injuries with the DPW workers. Would basically be a safer environment for the highway foreman to be using. We recommended through building and grounds, replacing the electrical outdated fuse panels at the town hall. There was some discussion on this as far as having it replaced, but at the end of the discussion, having things constantly blow at town hall as far as plugs and copiers, and you need to have your main building to basically be electrically sound. The fire escape at Station 2 was also recommended, put forward, which would replace the second story fire escape. Currently right now, if we don't replace this, I think there's a strong possibility the use of the second floor would not be allowed. This is, again, something that would be replacing not only the fire escape, but the landing down below that is currently falling apart. So we also recommended replacing the existing unsafe backhoe in the amount of $57,900. The backhoe, from with our understanding and through some questioning, basically steers one way and goes the other. It's outlived its useful time, and without a reliable, we felt that having someone get hurt with a backhoe that wasn't being used correctly was a strong possibility. So, not that it wasn't used correctly, that wasn't performing safely was a liability. And the last item that we were able to put forward in our recommendations was developmental services, looking to purchase a vehicle. They were looking for $35,000 to purchase a newer used vehicle. We were able to, felt comfortable with giving $25,000 towards that for them to purchase a good solid used vehicle, using their personal vehicles for the various inspections that they do from house to house, new construction, driveways, numerous different things. We didn't think was a good thing to be continuing with. We felt that having them use a town vehicle for this was safer for them and safer for the town, not having to replace somebody's personal vehicle that could be of any nature of a style of vehicle. These 15 totaled $525,810. We recommend putting these forward. There's also some discussion on pilot programs coming from other agencies. If there were, we did have some other projects that we certainly had merit, as all of them did, and we certainly would be willing to convene another meeting if there was additional funding available for capital purchases and for the review. That's the report from capital planning. At this point, I certainly would entertain any questions or comments that board members or the public have.
Thanks, Tom. I'd just like to go first on the 911 grant stuff. I know that we had talked about that. I read through all the grants and everything just seems very, very solid, very in line with how those grants are administered. I had a question about the PPE washers. In terms of requirement, Chief Dickey, do the other departments have also a necessity to wash any kind of PPE, or is it pretty much just your stuff?
Well, first off, the gear washer and dryers that we asked for, through CARES funds, we were actually able to purchase one washer and one dryer. So now we don't, the need that we asked for two was at that time. Now we're down to needing one each. But really the gear washer, which is a commercial clothes extractor.
Yep.
Similar to what you see in the laundromats and everything. We use that for our PPE, and our PPE that goes in that has got smoke and other things in it, you know, the carcinogens that we deal with.
Okay.
I really
But it
wouldn't advise that
cross-contaminate with another
using that for
department.
anything else.
Okay.
Things like the washer and dryers we have that we use for linens, for the ambulance. The guys use it for their uniforms and so forth like that. That would have the ability that if it was needed by another department that to do the same, you know, we can share those items as well.
Okay. Thanks, Chief. I appreciate it. On the self-contained breathing apparatus, I like the recommendation that you had there, Tom. I totally understand what you're saying. If we see another agency that's able to kind of swoop in and help us out with that, I definitely see your prioritization there. And then lastly, for TCTV, I do see that you've made the recommendation to outfit the Scout Hall. I definitely saw that and appreciated you assigning a number to that based on your plan. And then the website for TCTV, is that a separate website or is that integrated into our existing website? I think that's more of like, not for you, Tom, unless you know, a TCTV question.
Steve, if you're out there, or...
He is. He just came on.
Okay.
I can answer that, Mr. Chairman. That would be a separate website that we have been planning for a while, and hopefully we can get going in the next couple of years. And that would allow us a regional reach to satisfy our sponsors.
Okay. Any kind of like tertiary connections or otherwise, if you could work with our current website administrator so that they're integrated. I like the idea that you have. I just love the idea that we're able to integrate things, integrate communication to the public.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Steve. I had no further questions on the report. Excellent job. I thank you and your committee for all the hard work that you've done. I yield back all the time that my board needs to ask any questions.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please go ahead, Jeff.
Okay, so first off, I looked at the list and there's a few amounts that, if you look at the capital improvement bylaw, one of the responsibilities or duties of the capital improvement committee, because that's what the bylaw states, it's a capital improvement committee. One of their responsibilities is for things to come before them if they have a lifespan of 5 or more years and cost more than $10,000. If the items are purchased, in bulk, like you purchase, I don't know, 10 of these or 8 radios, whatever, and they cost more than 10 grand, then they meet that criteria. So things like the repeater system and the radios that cost less than 10 grand, again, per the bylaw, they don't really belong on the capital improvement list. It should just be out of that department's budget, or if they can fund them through a grant or the 9/11 E911 grant, et cetera, et cetera. And that's a detail. It's a bylaw that was created in 2000. There was some wordsmithing done to it when we did the bylaw compilation 19. So that's one technical thing. Some dollar amounts are on there that don't belong there per the bylaw. Speaking of grants, there is a money sitting on the books for vest grants for $3,800. I emailed the chief and he said he would like to let that sit in case during the year somebody leaves and they hire somebody new, or they hire a part-time that needs a vest. I believe that's what the town's emergency reserve fund is for. And especially this year and the next couple of years, we've already seen the state plans to reduce their budget next year by 1%. I believe we should be using that grant money to buy these vests that the chief wants this year, rather than let it sit there. And now to butter his toast a little bit, his plan to replace cruisers on a yearly basis makes so much sense financial wise, and it almost eliminates maintenance on the police department fleet, all their cruisers. Today you have cars, there's no grease in them. They do 100,000 miles on all the parts, change oil and filters, and unless you tear up a tire or have an accident, you're almost zero maintenance cost on the cruisers. So if you could get that in line, and I know people look, well, that car you just bought it looks brand new. You get something in trade when it comes time to get a new one, and you don't spend money on maintenance costs, which is really dollars wasted on these small items. When you get into like a $200,000 truck, well, it's a different story. My feelings on the ambulance receipts, I've already stated that for the dryers, if the chief needs a dryer and a washer, and it's going to be used for like ambulance linens and their uniforms and things like that, I believe that's another case where it's a no-brainer if that money would come out of ambulance receipts. I mean, again, it's fees charged by the ambulance service to support the ambulance service, which may, free up some funds for other things. A payment on the ambulance lease that we currently have on the books, instead of coming out of taxation, come out of ambulance receipts. It's $58,000, something like that. So again, the dollar amounts that don't technically meet the guidelines of the bylaw, again, it's a process and procedure, and we're either going to follow them or not. Using a grant that's on the books, I believe, especially right now, where we're talking about using one-time monies to balance the budget, I believe we should spend those grant monies. And as far as most of TCTV is enterprise fund, so I mean it's money, but it's not on the tax base, and it doesn't hit the budget where you get this or you don't get it because we don't have the tax dollars. Remembering that we don't collect 100% of our real estate taxes in any given year anyways, even though we put it down like we have that money. So overall, I don't have any big heartache with the capital stuff as presented. The sidewalk.
Jeff, all we're doing tonight is accepting the report. I mean, if we need to make tweaks and otherwise, that this is just their recommendation and all of the work and analysis that went into it. So everything that you're saying is great, but it's not, we're not putting things into stone tonight. We're just accepting the report.
If we're accepting the report, we are kind of putting it in stone.
These are the recommendations of the Capital Planning Committee. If you look at the budget process from last year, Jeff, the capital report did not look like the final report. We can play this game like we did with the appointments tonight. We can go back and do the analysis. This evening, we're only accepting the report. Are there any other comments? Jeff, I think you had more, but I just wanted to interject to remind you on for protocol wise, it's just it's the presentation recommendations. So if you have some more, or other board members, if you have anything else. Okay, if there are no other questions, then I will entertain a motion to accept the capital planning recommendation.
So moved. Can I do that since I was on the committee?
Yeah, I mean, you're operating in both capacities. I mean, you're on the committee, but you're also a select board member.
So I make a motion to accept the capital planning recommendations as presented.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Tim. Okay, any discussion on the motion to accept the report of the Capital Planning Committee as presented?
Just that I really felt when I looked at it, I was so thankful for Tom. What a nice job. I really just
agree.
felt so grateful that he did such a, for his first time. I just, thank you.
Yeah. As far as procedure again, Jeff, I'd like to have a discussion with you about last year's budget process and how that recommendation morphed through the budget process. And I want to make sure that everybody's clear about that. Unless I'm 100% mistaken, the recommendation did not, again, like Tom said, they made the recommendation about pilot funds. We haven't figured out some of these budget situations yet. And we then do that table that goes into the budget document that then solidifies these recommendations. But we're basically saying the guidance this evening, as Tom presented it, we can adopt it or shift it based on those recommendations. And Jeff, I would submit to you, again, you have a lot of positive things to move in there. And I don't disagree with use grant monies for what the grant was given. I agree with that. We have time to be able to make sure that we're arranging the money to align with these recommendations. So I just want to make sure that that's clear.
And I am just trying to attempt to discuss public documents in a public forum, not, offline behind closed doors. Public business and public.
Yep, bravo. Okay, if there are no other comments or questions about the accepting of the report, on the motion to accept the report of the Capital Planning Committee as presented, how do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Thank you very much, Tom, to you and your committee.
You're welcome. Thank you for having us here tonight.
Great. Thank you. Okay, moving on. We are now into quarterly reports for second quarter of FY21. Development Services, you are up first. Good evening.
Thank you very much. So as everybody knows, our second quarter was full of COVID-19, and it really started to change the way we operate. There were some successes, though. I'd like to bring attention to the Lions Club, who continued to do things for the community, even though it was difficult. So they had a Halloween event that was very successful, and they also sold Christmas trees, which everybody needed. As the agent for the Board of Health, I continued to participate in twice weekly calls with Mass DPH to keep us up to date on what's going on, numbers, future vaccine, the whole 9 yards. Those are on Tuesdays and Fridays. We still participate through Montechusett Public Health Network. The public health nurses have provided us with countless hours of contact tracing and keeping up with people, and they've just done a bang-up job, and I'm very, very thankful for everything that they do. Let's see. Sorry, I really should have put my glasses on. We continued work on 10 Pleasant Street, making it safe and secure. Thank you to the Highway Department and Bob's team. Unfortunately, with that, there were no bids for the property. The AG's office had demolition grant was pretty much used up, but they're going to keep us informed when they do more. Adam and I attended the Green Communities kickoff meeting with MRPC and the state reps that provide us support. We had our lovely fall town meeting, which took a lot of preparation. And I'm happy to say that in the end, there was zero transmission of COVID-19 from that particular meeting. So great job, everyone. Thank you to our CERT team for their dedication to making sure everything ran smoothly too. Thankfully, I got to submit a request to the Capital Planning Committee, and yay. The building commissioner and his administrative assistant, Rhonda, she does a lot of backup for me too. Building has just not slowed down at all. And as you can see from the report, we collected fees of about almost $33,000 in the quarter. And that was based on almost $3 million worth of construction, whether it be new single family homes or additions and renovations. Wiring was busy, plumbing was busy. Agricultural Commission, they actually assisted us with a nuisance complaint. Believe it or not, roosters can be a noise nuisance, and they were very helpful and resolved that issue. The Zoning Board of Appeals heard, actually, they haven't heard yet. We have 131 Dudley Road coming up. We have 15 Caruth, both being worked on at the moment. Planning approved. They had approvals not required for Brooks Road, Phillipston Road, Rice Road. They also did a site plan review for Templeton Municipal Light Plant for an equipment building. And Ross Road had a consultation with the planning chair, which was helpful. Conservation had 9 site walks. Those were mostly to support the single family homes that are going up. Templeton Fish and Game, Conservation approved lowering of the pond so that they could do treatment for weed control. The Farnsworth Road Conservation restriction went through, was signed and approved by Conservation and forwarded to the Select Board. And again, working with the DPW, a nuisance complaint on water on Brooks Road from the new construction was resolved. The Board of Health, it's just all in conjunction with the buildings that are going on, very busy with parks, very busy with inspections for bed bottoms, and then which goes on to final inspections. We're still working with the AG's office for abandoned housing. As you may have seen, 21 South Main was added to that list, and it's being currently cleaned up. So that'll be in next quarter's report. All of our annual permitting was completed. Attended fall seminars. It's the normal stuff added on. I don't know if anybody had a chance to read the report and if they have any questions.
Lori, I did not have any question. Any other board member questions? Thank you for that report.
Mr. Chairman, no questions, just a general comment. Very comprehensive report. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no further questions, Lori, I don't think you have anyone else from your team that's waiting this evening. So thank you very much for your report, and we're going to move on into the finance team. On the agenda, yep, on the agenda, I've got finance is up next. And the report is a little bit, jumps around in the actual reports in the agenda, but finance, go ahead.
Well, good evening. So for the accountant's office, the second quarter has been just an extreme challenge, probably one of the most challenging quarters I've had since I've started working here, even with all the audits. My assistant went out for surgery and ended up not coming back as was anticipated. So I've been filling both positions for, quite some time now. And then with the COVID funding and all of the reporting aspects and all of that has made it even more challenging. But there's light at the end of the tunnel. Thankfully, right before Carter left, he suggested that I see if Nicole, who had been my assistant before, would come back and work part-time, which she did. So that was a great help coming in the evenings to get the warrant and things done. And then kind of the expenditure trends, we've done very well this year. Usually I have a lot more to report that's over the 50, but there was very limited this year. So people are doing well with the with their expenses. To December 30th, we've had 205,000 on COVID funds that we've expended for COVID. So that's, we're making progress. A lot of the funds have already been, have come in that covers most of that. The working with FEMA to try to get the rest of the funding. It's been an extremely slow process. Things that they have, said that they would cover, now they're not covering. It's just it's a very comprehensive reconciliation process that I think is going to go well into 2022 by the time all of it's said and done. Especially now that they've extended it to December 30th of this year. You'll notice on the expenditure side that we've got a deficit in the Chapter 90 of 273,000. The staff changed in that office, and I've been working with them this week and last week, and I hope that we've gotten it all figured out where we can get those reimbursements sent into the state to get that money back in the office. And going forward, hopefully we won't have the lag of this anymore. Again, the revenue, we're at 46%, which is a little below, but I feel that we're going to make up with that with the excise and real estate tax bills. Even in that 46%, Cheryl, she's on it again with the tax title. Right now, at half of the year, she's already collected 101,000, which is amazing. She's doing just extremely well with that. And we took an 84,000 in the surplus sale. And even with the COVID and the limited dining and all of that, we've received, almost 30,000 already, and our budget's 42, so we still have another, half a year of money to receive. So I think, revenues and expenditures are doing pretty good. So on to Luann, unless you have any questions.
Any questions for Kelly?
I do. Just a couple of things that I looked at the second quarter expenditure report, and I looked at the first quarter, and somehow, and I don't know, because it's very little amount, the selectmen went from $300,750, and that was town meeting vote in July, and then in August and September, it changed to $300,742.25, but then in November, it went back to the original amount, Kelly. And your office did the same thing. It's like $8 or something.
Okay, what that is there were journal entries that needed to be done for both of those departments. And when Rick, my assistant, did those entries, he did them as budget transfers instead of journal entries. So it changed the budget column. So that's why they've gone back now, because I found that error and fixed it. Because there's two different types of entries you can do.
Okay, like I said, it's like $7. It's like somebody needed lunch money or something. But it came back, so I thought it was probably hit the wrong number or something, but it's,
It
I was
was,
just
yeah,
curious
it was
as-
the type, the transaction type was incorrect.
thank you.
Adam, do you have any further clarification on that, or did you have something else?
No, I just also wanted to thank Kelly. She's been working extremely hard. That office was short-staffed, and
Yep.
she's come through and has been working on payroll, taking care of all the core responsibilities and even other matters. So I want to thank her for her
Yep.
work.
Amen, brother. Jeff, did you have any other questions?
No, that was,
Okay,
I just noticed those nuance in the numbers.
okay, thank you. And thanks for pointing that out, Adam. And we definitely, like Kelly led off, it's been tough, and she's done us proud. Luann, good evening. Hold on, Luann, you're on mute.
Okay, sorry
There we
about
go. Now we can hear you.
that. Okay, as you can see, the second report for us guys is all about tax rate, getting the tax rate set. We had our classification hearing in October with the Board of Selectmen. We did do a single rate across the board. Tax rate ended up coming in at $16.11 this year, which is down 72 cents from last year. So as normal flow is, tax rate down, values up, and yes, indeed, our values in town did go up. Sales continue to be off the charts in 19, 20, and now going towards the end of 21 and into 22, it's going to be just as high. I had houses go anywhere from 8% to 25% in valuations this year for taxes. So yeah, homeowners got hit hard, but sales are just off the charts and people continue to pay way above asking prices. It's definitely a seller's market. Third and fourth quarter tax bills were committed in December, and the export files were sent over to the collector's treasurer's office. We had everything at the billing company by the middle of December, but after Cheryl and I talked, we didn't want to hit people with tax bills before Christmas time, so we opted not to have our tax bills mailed out from the billing company until December 28th, which then people didn't get them till right after they were postmarked December 30th. Legally, they have to be postmarked before January 1st. So they did go out. It's just, we did get a flux of calls from people saying, hey, we didn't get our tax bill yet. So maybe next year we'll send them out a little bit sooner, but we were just trying to hold off till after the holiday. So people were a little concerned, but they did go out on time, and liens went on the properties for the water and sewer departments this year. Title V loans went on. I have 2 years left of sewer betterments that are still rolling on to the taxes. So there was a lot of input put into the tax bills before they did go out. This year we also is our 5th year of the pilot program with Sunny Templeton LLC, which is the solar farm up on Farnsworth Road. That's a 20-year agreement with them. And like I said, we're into year number 5. That brings over 11,000 plus a year coming in for revenue for the town from them. And it gradually goes up to the max at 20 years. Motor vehicles, another one commitment was done in November, and motor vehicle goes on a calendar year in the town for us. So for this year, well, for 2020, we had over $1.2 million go out in town excise taxes. Of that, I had roughly about $76,000 in abatement applications that were given back. So revenue's going high. In fact, we just got a commitment. I know I'm going into my 3rd quarter, but even my first commitment with over 8,000 bills going out this week was over $900,000 in tax revenue coming in within the next 30 days. My budgets and goals were submitted to the town administrator. Our annual reports were submitted. We did interviewing for the town accountant, but much to our dismay, no offense, Kelly, but didn't go so well. So we did notice the postings back up for a town accountant. So we're working on getting that done. I've done a lot of Zoom meetings, getting better at them, but they continue to go. My board fortunately was able to meet October, November, and December. They only met in executive session, which was something they had to do because they go through abatement and exemption applications that are not open for public disclosure. So my board has had the chance to meet and get some paperwork signed, so nothing's backing up in our office. Usually my board will go out and do a lot of the new construction measuring, but just bearing on the cautious side, I choose not to send them out. So I've been going out to measure all the new properties in town, which have been quite a few, thanks to the building department over there. Building's crazy. And we also have a few huge new developments that are in the planning stages that are also going to be coming into town. So Lori's department and my department will not be slowing down when it comes to new construction and building permits. But so I do go out, I'm doing the measuring. Thankfully, I con my husband into it and he does come out and do the measuring with me, which is great. So just a kudos to my husband for helping me out with this so I can get those structures measured up. Other than that, pretty much we're continuing on. Right now, I'm kind of doing all the sketching and moving forward with what I have to in my third quarter. So if you got any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, that's about it.
Thank you, Luann.
You're welcome.
Questions for Luann?
I just want to know if that would be senior work off for taxes with Tom going out.
He does turn 65 in March. But no, unfortunately, we're residents in Phillipston, so no, it can't go towards our businesses in Templeton.
Business property tax.
Any other questions for Luann? All right, well, thank you, Luann. And my grid changed. There she is. Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I guess I'm up. So during the quarter, we did the tax taking process, which as you can see, we advertised 70 properties this year. Of those 72, 52 ended up being liened. So they were sent for to the registry of deeds and a lien was placed on the properties. Since those have been done, I've mailed out letters to those 52 people. And as of the end of December, we had gotten 13 of those had paid off the liens. And I've gotten quite a few more since. So that really paid off, just sending out that extra letter, letting them know that the lien had been actually placed on their property. We have been getting collections in, which has been good. And I'm hoping it's going to continue with that trend and gets rid of some of these things. I've been working on some of the older ones and I processed some land of low values. It's the first time doing this for me, so I don't really know how the process works. It's just a little easier and less cost effective than doing like a foreclosure procedure. I'm not sure how it's going to work exactly, but so far we've submitted 6 and we're waiting to hear back on whether they're going to be accepted or not. And we'll go from there and see how that works. I'm going to try to get some more submitted. This way we don't have to go through the attorney and hopefully save some money there. We had the typical quarterly bills, each quarter, property tax and excise, sewer all due during the quarter. We had prepared 157 MLCs. That's when the houses are selling, MLCs are being prepared. So that's $50 a piece for those. So we're getting that in. The meals tax, like Kelly said, is pretty close to what it's been in the past, even with COVID. So for this quarter, we received the $16,338. I attended a few meetings, the Mass Treasure collectors, the Worcester County collectors, all by Zoom, several capital planning committees. So those are continuing. Like Luann said, the bills, we processed the bills at the end of the year, got those sent to the billing company. They were mailed out the end of December. Both quarters are there for people. Some people still don't realize that third and fourth quarter are there. So don't throw away that extra piece. It's got to be mailed in with the May payment. No additional bills are going to be made. The third quarter payments due on Monday, so hopefully everybody's seen that and they're getting their money in. Other than that, it's been pretty good. I think that's it for me. If anybody's got any questions.
Yep, thanks. Any questions for Cheryl? All right, let's see. Community services. All right, Cheryl, looks like you're off the hook for questions this evening. Thank you to the finance team. Very much appreciate it. We're going to roll into community services. Jackie,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, everyone. This is the first time that I've had to do 2 Zoom meetings at the same time for Phillipson and Templeton. It was crazy. My cat didn't know which keyboard to jump onto. So in general, on the community services end, the biggest thing this quarter was the transition for the food pantry operations to the New Hope Bible Chapel, which happened on November 1st. The only obligation I still have to the food pantry is that block grant that we partnered with the town of Athol in obtaining. So there's just some reporting. I submitted my first quarter report for that in this quarter. On the library end of things, we're still striving to stay connected to our patrons with curbside service, some tutorials for ebooks, craft kits during the holidays for the kids. Steve at TCTV recorded a storytime video, so that was great. I submitted my 3 reports to the Board of Library Commissioners for certification, as well as the library's budget for fiscal year 22, the fiscal year 20 annual report. And the other big news at the library is the construction on the roof replacement and other construction began and was largely completed by the end of this quarter. Senior services, in November, we were able to successfully mail out copies of the monthly newsletter for the first time since March. From March through October, it had only been sent electronically, and it's something the seniors really look forward to receiving in the mail, as they're not all on email. So it was great to be able to do that. New activities included a cheer squad weekly wellness telephone check-in calls, a walking club. Luann and Tom Royer at Camelot generously donated 100 Thanksgiving dinners for seniors. And we also did a Christmas dinner initiative with Crossroads. So that was great. I'll finish up with Veterans and Cultural Council real quick, and then Steve can jump on for TCTV. Sheila reports that she continued to work with veterans on their Chapter 115 benefit claims. She handled the removal of the flags on the town cemeteries in November, worked with the DAV chapter to store ramps for veterans use. She continued with her food giveaway program, which was amazing. They serviced their 100th customer on New Year's Eve, which is amazing. And she just continues to reach out with other organizations to network. And on the Cultural Council, unfortunately, didn't meet at all in this quarter. They did allow for Davis Bates to record a performance, which is looping on Channel 8. So that's great. And unfortunately, most of their activities and events that were funded had to be canceled or postponed due to COVID. They did just meet last week, so they're trying to get the new funding round going. So it's just been tough for them in terms of what they do and the restrictions that COVID has placed on them. So that's all I have, and I'll turn it over to Steve for TCTV, and then if you have any questions.
Okay, Rogers, go ahead, Steve.
Good evening, everybody. again. So the second quarter for TCTV was largely dominated by getting the new server operational. And, once it's installed, in a lot of ways, the work isn't over, it just begins. And we've had to, work on the schedule and watch it really closely. And I remember Tim asking me about it a few weeks after it was installed. And I said, I feel like I'm leashed to the thing. So that's worn off a little bit, and we've been able to accomplish a lot with it. And, with big software initiatives like this that run a lot of your operations, we're finding bugs and wrinkles that we have to work out with it. But I'd say we're about 96% there, to a point where it's a very comfortable baseline. And now we're starting to train Hannah's actually been doing great on training on streaming the meetings, which is a complicated process now. And Caitlin's been training on doing the slides, and even Kaylee at the senior center is uploading slides to it. So we're really starting to roll out that community thing and seeing how that's going. I think up top, I mentioned that 37 meetings were streamed. So we have been doing some Zoom meetings, and I thought that number was low, but I realized that we were in a 13, instead of a 13-week quarter, we had a 10-week quarter. So that's really because of the holidays, 3.5 meetings a week. And we had plenty of double headers during that time. And I just put in the stats from YouTube and Facebook, just to let you see. I think it's interesting that, the meetings do really well during the week. And when we post a community video, it only has a few views, but they accumulate over time. And that Tonka truck video is just rocking it now. So somebody embeds videos somewhere, and they can, get great viewership. And I think this is something really nice that we can bring to our sponsors to say, we get short-term gain from the meetings every week and long-term gain from the community videos that we do as well. We have a whole new collector time series coming up. And if you notice, the graph on Facebook makes it really hard to get a total for the quarter, but you can extrapolate that. And if you look closely, you can see that we're up in terms of the reach and how many people can access our posts per day. So even though our overall numbers went down a little bit during the quarter, I think because we pulled back to really just cover Templeton, and I had to pull back and really focus on the server, our reach is expanding, and that's a good thing. And I also just want to give Hannah credit for the sleepy time story time video, and hopefully more to come. She does a great job for us. So I'll entertain any questions.
Great. Thank you, Steve. Any questions for Steve or Jackie?
No question, just a comment for Steve. I do remember our conversation, Steve, as you were dragging us right across the finish line with that server just before one of our meetings went live. Strong work.
Thank you.
Steve, off the top of your head, do you know how long we have left with that Comcast contract?
Off the top of my head,
Is it
June
7?
15th, 2027.
Okay. So that kind of slides the importance of you getting the website up for sponsorship and to keep that whole plan working. I believe you stated this with all the streaming and everything, the way it's going, that could possibly be the last time we get anything out of the cable companies.
Yes, we actually thought that with the last contract. I tend to think that we will be negotiating with them in a few years, and you have to start this process 3 years early. So we'll be starting it in 2024, which I'm sure will come up much too quick for my liking. And I don't know what will happen to the revenues then. They could have a gradual decline or a steep decline all of a sudden. I think I get more calls now from some of the new homeowners, and they say, and somebody asks, why does Comcast have an exclusive license? Well, they don't. And, and they ask all these questions, and then they say, well, I'm not going to get the TV. And I say, just so you know, that's what pays for TCTV. And this is everything that you get with that. So yeah, I would say that what I said in 2015, the race is on. So we need to get sponsorship and video production monies and revenues in, because eventually that money's probably going to go away. The state is talking about a streaming services surcharge that might help supplement those funds, but that's in committee, and I would expect that they would do that. The state is very supportive of public access TV stations throughout the Commonwealth, but you know, right now it's stuck in committee. So who knows what's going to happen with that. I don't count on anything until I see the money.
I'd like to see some, support to their ratepayers. The data cap that just occurred within Comcast. It's, I've heard people talk about it from a municipal standpoint. Certainly something that I think is affecting a lot of people.
Yeah, and that's something that, I'm going to have to look at my home bill, because I've been running a TV station from this room, and there's at least we're not uploading and downloading as much with the new server, because we're recording this right now to the server, so we don't have to then upload a long file to it. But we'll see what happens. 1.2 terabytes is a lot. You have to really use a lot of data to take that search. I don't even think we can reach that, but we'll see.
Any other questions for either Steve or Jackie? Okay, Jackie, Steve, and everybody else within your report, thank you very much. I appreciate it. We're going to move on to public safety. First up, at least in the agenda packet, is the police department. Good evening, Chief Bennett.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Okay, so the second quarter of 21 started off with some sense of normalcy, only to see the COVID-19 cases escalate. However, the men and women of the department continue to do their jobs to the best of their ability. We have had our share of COVID-19 related issues, and we're able to overcome these issues to still provide quality service to the community. The station project to Sally Port was completed, providing an area capable of sheltering 4 units from the weather. The consultant for the third-party HVAC vendors came into the station, did their walkthrough, and we're waiting for findings to move forward with the HVAC humidity issues. Some minor projects still need to be completed, such as front landscaping, department signage, flagpole. These will be addressed hopefully soon. As part of the department's capital planning request, we finally took delivery of the new cruiser and has been added to the fleet. The town has finally received some viable quotes for the new ACO vehicle, and the hope is that we will see progress on these in short order. Also, we heard from the Commonwealth, and we hope to see movement on the completion of the setup of our live scan fingerprint scanner and the installation of the e-citations in all the frontline units. Lastly, the department has 1 new per diem dispatcher who is now fully trained and capable of covering shifts. The other 2 per diem dispatchers are both working towards being able to cover shifts and should be able to soon. Again, the department is still down 1 full-time officer from the 2014 financial difficulties, and we hope to fill that position sometime soon. As for the stats, as always, I put the comparison from the previous quarter to this quarter. ACO went down. That's not uncommon for this time of year. Arrest almost doubled. Assist other agencies went up significantly. Incidents, investigations stayed about the same. Restraining orders about the same. Little increase to parking tickets. Motor vehicle citations went up significantly. FIDs, LTCs stayed about the same. Police calls for service actually went up by about 600, and total calls to dispatch actually went up by approximately 525. Any questions?
Chief, I didn't have a question, but when I read your report, certainly that 4,695 police calls for service, that's quite a metric. I know, and I see your trend line for everything else, but I definitely appreciate that, the weight of that number. Any questions or comments for Chief Bennett? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Chief. I very much appreciate your time this evening.
Okay, everybody have a good night.
Okay, next up in public safety is Chief Dickey. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening, everybody. Tim, thank you for doing that. Moment of silence at the beginning of the meeting. I was going to ask for it during my presentation, but it was better off being at the meeting. So again, thank you, Tim.
My pleasure. You did not mean to steal your thunder at all, sir.
You did not. The importance was doing it for Tracy at that point in time. So no thunder stolen. So thank you, everybody. My report this for the second quarter. Our calls are about average for what we have been averaging at 273 emergency calls. Our residential and commercial inspections at 102 is a little high, but that goes right along with the building department. They are in a boom for building, and we have to go in there and do inspections right there with them. Our breakdown runs pretty close to where we normally are with our ambulance calls at 186, 18 motor vehicle accidents, 23 fire alarm activations. That is both commercial and or residential. Our mutual aid calls for fire at 2, EMS mutual aid, which is at 9, which is when other communities call us and we send an ambulance there, which we do bill for. Fire service calls or public assistance calls at 25, 1 hazmat calls, 0 structure fires, 8 miscellaneous style fires, and 1 brush fire. I do apologize for not having any more real information in my report for last quarter. We were down a guy. The last hire that we did, they finally got into the academy. So he was gone for a portion of that quarter. And we did have trouble filling shifts. And I was filling quite a bit of calls myself and did not really get a lot of time in the office during that quarter. So hopefully next quarter we'll get back up with a better report.
Yeah, Chief, I mean, I agree. You and I were sitting down to talk about budget, and right in the middle of our meeting, you got called. So I definitely appreciate how busy you've been, certainly with that added task of running through PPE and otherwise as we are still within this pandemic. So I appreciate you and your team and the support that you're giving the community. Any questions for Chief Dickey? Okay, hearing none. Chief Dickey, thank you very much for this evening, and we'll be seeing you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next this evening is Public Works. With us, we've got Bob Sozik. Bob, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Board, Adam. I'm here to go over the second quarter report on the DPW Highway Department and Buildings and Grounds. Second quarter, starting out with the Highway Department, we have seen some staff come and go, but we are now happy to be up to I would say almost a full crew, and actually one guy still short from the cut years ago. Crews received training on a new cab backhoe and the pavement roller we received towards late fall, early winter. Been busy with some storms, several tree cleanups, and branches and down trees. Did some catch basin cleaning at that time, plowing, salting, and clearing of the sidewalks as well. Assisting the other departments in the storm cleanups, the light and water. I've been doing a lot of pothole patching. Rebuilt several catch basins before the winter really hit. Second and third round of red letters went out just before winter, and the roads that were notified to do the request that I asked for. Update on the new 6-wheel plow sander dump truck that was on capital planning. We're expecting to see that arrive around the end of February. On buildings and grounds, we are very happy and pleased to receive a new zero-turn mower. This new mower does have like a leaf plow on it, and it's not a John Deere, it's a Gravely, and the help seems to really like it and thinks it's a much better machine. Aeration was done at Gilman Waite before we did some fertilization and other treatments of that field in the fall. We removed all the trash and put away barrels for the winter from Gilman Waite in the cemeteries. Building and grounds crew, they built a leaf box, which is working good with the new leaf vac. It's something new for Templeton. They completed a fall cleanup at all the town buildings, Gilman Waite, and cemeteries. Storms required several cleanups in the cemeteries and from down trees and branches. And then
Bob, you went on mute. I don't know how, but you went on mute. Down trees was the last thing we heard.
can you hear me now?
Yep.
Sorry about that.
Nope, no problem.
So, yeah, we had a lot of storms that were down trees and branches throughout the cemeteries and town building locations, and they've been busy cleaning them up. Also, plowing and sanding of all town buildings and assisting the highway department on the roads as well. Poured some foundations for some flat stones and memorials at the cemeteries. Completed several assisted patrons interested in purchasing plots, and assisted others with locating graves and helping understanding the cemeteries and rules and policies. So that pretty much in a nutshell. If you guys have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Thanks, Bob. I appreciate that. I don't have any questions. Any questions from the board? Actually, I take that back. Bob, you're talking about, let's see, the red letters sent out for private roads. Is that concerning drainage? Are those the drainage ones that I get copied on or the board gets copied on?
No, yes or no, I'm not sure which problem I'm trying to get at, but the red letters, every spring and fall, we send out a red letter to the private roads. We do it 3 times. I go around, assess them all, and pick out a few of the worst ones, and I send the red letter, stating what my findings are and what I'd like to see done to make it a safe operation for the highway trucks to go in and out, potholes, branches, junk piled up at the end of the road, or whatever the case may be. We do have a private road where we have a resident discharging, pumping water out into the private road. Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah, it was the ones that I were aware of where we had drainage problems onto the road. I just wondered how that fed into it.
the one street that we're talking about, Mr. Lamonte did send out a letter. I don't know if we heard anything back. I inspected, we didn't. But if the ice buildup and the potholes of the icing is bad enough, I'm gonna have to discontinue services because leaf springs and breaking shackle bolts or whatever, it's gonna destroy the equipment, and I feel bad for the people that need the services.
Yep. Thanks for that description. Any other questions to Bob? All right. Thank you very much, Bob. Appreciate that level of detail. As always, very happy to see you out there, especially when the weather starts to turn and otherwise. So very, very appreciative of you and your staff.
Thank you.
And have a good night.
You too.
Okay, we are through. Time now is 8:36. I am monitoring the chat. We do have people watching, but I don't have any additional chat. We are up to action related to our host community agreement for Sugar Grove, and I believe that we have several. I definitely saw Sam. I think I saw Hunter. I recognize their names from the letter that they sent, but it looks like we've got quite a few on there. If you'd like to, and Tom, thank you for joining us this evening, Town Council. Adam, would you care to do the introductions this evening?
I will, Mr. Chairman. With us this evening, we have Town Council Tom Harrington and Ryan from his office, as well as Kaylee Hepburn and Blake, working with the folks from Sugar Grove. And I know Sam Bacon is involved as well. And we have a good crew here, and they've been working on this since the board authorized a negotiation.
Mm-hmm.
And Tom, if you could take it from here and kind of just give the overall presentation. I know you spent a lot of time, and then Kaylee wants to take it after you.
Sure. Well, and actually, so good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Again, Tom Harrington, Town Council, and we're here to talk about the Sugar Grove Host Community Agreement, which I, along with Carter and Adam, have negotiated with the folks from Sugar Grove, led by Blake Mensing and Kaylee Hepburn. So I'm going to turn it over to Kaylee because she had asked for about 5 minutes to do a presentation. So Kaylee, if that's okay, I'll let you introduce the HCA. And then after your introduction, I can come back and kind of fill in any blanks and answer any questions. That sound good?
Yes. Let me share my screen quickly.
Yep. I think, oh, good. Excellent.
All right. Hi, I'm Kaylee Hepburn. I'm one of the attorneys for Sugar Grove. So I wanted to give a quick overview of the company and the HCA that we've negotiated with Tom and Carter and Adam. So our company that we're looking to set up a tier 2 cultivation greenhouse and a manufacturing facility at 642 Patriots Road. They're going to lease a newly constructed greenhouse and then build out the existing building that's at that property, which used to be the Lemire Furniture Building. Sugar Grove's mission includes 4 main points, which would be to offer high quality products, create an inclusive work environment, reduce its environmental impact, and generate a positive impact on its community. So our 2 founders are Sam Bacon and Hunter Sherman. Sam has a background in chemical engineering and as a financial analyst, and Hunter is a current cannabis caregiver and cultivator in another jurisdiction. So the main points of our HCA would be we're offering a community impact fee of 1.5% of the gross profit for 5 years. That's estimated to be about $1,542,000 over the first 5 years of their operation. They're also offering in this agreement to pay for obviously the permitting fees, utility connection, and any consulting fees for the town. I'll go through the benefits to the town on the next couple slides. The HCA includes a security plan, which is in addition to being compliant with the CCC state guidelines, It's also going to be presented to the town and the police department. The police department would be able to work with Sugar Grove to determine camera placement, and we've offered periodic meetings with the police department to review the security procedures and meetings following any emergencies. The town will be able to approve any on-site managers. Will always be in compliance with town regulations regarding any noise pollution. Town officials are authorized to inspect the building and the facilities. And Sugar Grove will use their best efforts to address any reasonable community concerns, which we had a community outreach meeting a few months ago with good feedback. They'll also supply annual reports for security audits, operational and financial records. Some of the benefits to the town that are in the HCA would be the property taxes, which will be increased on that property because they'll be building a new greenhouse and operating the current building. They'll also be using town water, and they offered 40 man hours of community service every year to support a town identified cause. The community impact fee we talked about at 1.5%, and they're also offering to the extent allowed by law to employ and contract with people from the local area. Outside of the HCA, this particular site in Templeton will be leasing to 3 operators, which all should be offering the same benefits to the town. So they'll have that 1.5% over 3 different operators. Part of the lease commitment includes a contribution to the Mend Foundation, which is a foundation that would operate in each town that the landlord operates in. And they'll identify a town goal or a town project, and part of the lease from each cultivator will be donated to that project. Sugar Grove also has a positive impact plan, which is going to include a $5,000 donation to the New England Veterans Alliance and an annual record sealing workshop for the people in and around Templeton. And their diversity plan includes hiring 20% of the employees from CCC identified diverse groups and providing training for advancement and training for diversity sensitivity. And then I just have our contact information here, so I'm happy to answer any questions. I know Blake is here to answer any questions that you might have too.
Well, thank you very much, Kaylee. I appreciate that. Sam, Hunter, or Blake, do you have anything that you wanted to add on to Kaylee's presentation?
No, I think that covered it. Just to clarify, I only practice cannabis law. So if there's a regulatory question, I am sure I can answer it. And if you're not aware, Tom Harrington was my former boss and gave me great training in municipal law. It's been great to work with him again. So anyway, we appreciate the time.
Thank you, Blake.
And just want to say thank you guys for having us. A pleasure to get to have the opportunity to be in front of you guys. So looking forward to working with you guys in the future, and anything you need, we're available to you.
I just would also just like to reiterate what Sam said and just how excited we are to get things going here in your town, and looking forward to working with everybody in the future. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Hunter. I appreciate that. Well, Kaylee, thank you for that. That brief. It very much pulls out all of the salient points from not only the memo that's in our that was presented to us, but the again that draft or submitted HCA. I did have some questions. I mean, you guys have done a great job putting all of that right in front of us. I love how you really thought of everything, security, how your involvement is with the town, all of the multiple people that you wind up working with. So you come with a village, not just Sugar Grove. Do you know if you know what I mean? Love the fact that you're working with veterans groups, and I think my questions really are for my public safety team. So I'd like to be able to kind of have a conversation with them, or at least ask a few of the questions. And then I have a question for Tom. Tom, how does this compare? I think there's got to be over 20, 30, or I don't know if there's even as high as 50 of these across the state right now, but comparatively, how is the trend line moving for these HCA's with the cannabis industry?
So, Mike, so we've worked on a bunch of them in other towns. And so what I'd say is, and I think one of the strongest benefits that we were able to negotiate with Sugar Grove in this instance was at the beginning, we were talking about a fixed fee, and then the fixed fee would go up as their operation grew. And we got them to the 1.5% of their gross revenues, which helps because then we're not dealing with incremental increases, and it gives I think it gives the town a more steady stream, and the income actually, I think, grows as they become more successful.
Right.
So I was pleased with that, and I was pleased with the fact that it's important to remember that these payments are community impact fees, so they're reimbursing us for impacts to our community. Now, depending on the town, it's easier or more difficult to quantify those impacts. And I think because of the workforce issue we have in Templeton with just, not enough boots on the ground to get the job done, it helps us because they've agreed that we're not going to have to prove our costs to them. They've agreed to the flat 1.5%. So kudos to them. We really appreciate that in the negotiating. Having said all that, the other HCA we negotiated in Templeton was for 3%. So this is about half of that. And I would say that the costs are trending down, so that 3% was pretty typical a couple of years ago. And I think it's now trending down to maybe 2 or below 2.
If I may, Tom.
Yeah.
Just yesterday, the city of Northampton announced that it has eliminated the HCA community impact fee in its entirety. So it's at 0%. Not trying to renegotiate, but there are people starting to say, hey, the impacts aren't that great. So anyway, just a data point.
Appreciate that. So I guess, Mike, in my experience, I think this is a fair deal. I think if I looked kind of as an average, that towns are getting maybe a little closer to 2 than 1.5. And I leave that to the board to consider.
Thanks, Tom. Any other board member comments or questions?
Just to back up the part about the community in Northampton. It's easy to sit there and go, oh, they're going to make so much money. You can't just take a private business and try to milk it dry before they even get going. There's property taxes, there's water, sewer potential, and things for community involvement, donation-wise and stuff. So there's always room to get other things from business, as we already do in town. You want a celebration, you want this, they go to small, they go to the small businesses. So I think the 1.5% is, I think it's a little, that's what they negotiated, that's fine, but 3% is almost like you're trying to milk a private business dry before they even get going. So kudos to them for the 1.5%. And it'll probably go like Northampton. More communities will say it's not that big of a deal. There's more benefits than just that, trying to get guaranteed revenue. And I applaud them for that. And I hope it works and it's prosperous.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other board members? Okay, hearing no other board members. I agree, Jeff. Between Blake, Tom, and your comments, I certainly think about the industry from a very high level, trying to say it's an industry that is still in flux, not only in our state but throughout the country. And there are a lot of different conversations going on right now. But having been involved with these HCA's and understanding that they all have their own nuances. I think that's what I appreciate about this. And everyone has a different perspective of, what is their market share? How do they interact with the community and otherwise? I guess what I'm trying to say is it's something, the final story hasn't been written. We're not talking about a supermarket. We're not even, I don't think we're even talking about something like Blockbuster. I think this is going to be something that's around for a long time. And there are going to be a lot of nuances to it. I would feel, I know that we have it as action tonight, but I'd still like to talk to my public safety team. I need to marinate in the HCA a little bit more from that perspective. And I think there are really good arguments this evening about the community impact tax. I'd really kind of like to take a look at that, whether it's comparatively or from a trend perspective. Adam, you had something?
I was just going to add, well, I mean, if the board's going to delay this, I'm not sure if that's the intention, but we, at some point, we'll have to sign off on the certification form with the host community agreement. So
I understand what the process is. Yep.
I mean, we've done that before. I'm just thinking, because we're going to need it from them. So Kaylee, would you send that over to us whenever this is executed? That way we could have the chair sign off when the board does it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Adam. So what are the board's thoughts on that? I'd like to, I have some questions that I'd like to ask where I don't have the people present tonight. I know that the opportunity to take this up again is, our next business meeting is the 10th of February. Holly, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
That's correct.
Okay. And if we needed to discuss it any further, we actually do have a workshop February 3rd.
We don't have the workshop.
Oh, we've canceled them. We haven't converted the meetings.
Well, yeah, since the policy was adopted, we went through and have adopted.
Okay, so the business meetings stand.
Business meeting
the
model.
workshops have come off. I understand.
If I may, Mr. Chair, not that I could stand in the place of your chiefs of police or fire, but I do know the security regulations on the state level really, really well. So if there are any questions, sort of how the interplay between the state regulations and local control comes up, I'd be happy to answer those now.
It's not a regulatory question. I just like to confer with the public safety team, and I haven't had the opportunity to do that.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Anything else from the board? Terry, Tim, Jeff? Okay, then I'd make a motion that we table this to our next business meeting, February 10th. And it's procedurally, I don't know, Tom, if you'd have a recommendation. I'm not sure. I don't think that we need to have the presentation or the full team again. So if any recommendations that you make on who would want to or need to be present for the next meeting?
So I'm not, so I think you're right. I think we have the presentation. I guess let's go through the process. You get the questions answered that you need answered and see if more questions can come up. And then I can reach out to Blake and Kaylee and get you answers, and we'll figure out whether we need them or not.
I'm comfortable with that. Thank you. Terry?
Does that include us discussing the host community as far as a 1.5% impact fee? Or is that a done deal?
Yeah, if you want to ask the questions or discuss it, we're in a public meeting now to discuss it. My questions aren't to the other board members. My questions are with the public safety team.
Okay, because it sounded like we wanted to not really have that impact fee. We don't want to gouge them before they even get off the ground. That's what it sounded like to me.
Well, that's what Jeff said. That was Jeff's interpretation. I like the agreement that the way that it is. I definitely still, I have research and I have questions to the public safety team. So I'd make a motion to table this to the 10th. Well, I've already made the motion, but I did not get a second. I'd like to table this to February 10th.
Second.
Thank you. Any issues moving it to the 10th? Jeff or Tim?
No issue.
Just a quick question. Is this going to put, how tight are they? I mean, is this going to interfere with their schedule, or were they planning on seeing this signed?
We certainly hope to have it signed this evening. The two gatekeeping functions for us to be eligible to submit to the state are a certification of this host community agreement having been inked, as well as the other one relating to the community outreach meeting, which we do have at the ready. So yeah, obviously I understand there are questions pending. I will just say that the commission is pretty slow. So, for obvious reasons, everyone wants to open as soon as possible. So it would be a slight delay. Can't change your mind if you have outstanding questions, but yeah, it would be helpful to get it earlier.
I'd like to have the time to review. That's to Tim, Terry, and Jeff. So no further discussion on my motion to table. How would you vote on that, Jeff?
No. Excuse me. No.
Terry?
Yes, you're a military man. You must have your reasons.
Tim?
Yes, I think it's important we get the public safety input.
And I vote yes. Holly, if you can make a note of the count. Sam, Hunter, Blake, Kaylee, Ryan, and Tom, thank you for coming on this evening. We hope to get you an answer as quickly as we possibly can. The next public meeting that we would have is the 10th. We just hope to have great news for you at that point.
Appreciate it. Thanks for your time and consideration, and see you on the 10th.
Thank you, Blake. Thanks for everyone for hanging in there and listening to all our municipal reports as well. Hopefully they were interesting.
Thank you. Good night.
Very interesting.
Thank you. Yeah, we agree. Thank you very much.
Have a good evening.
All right, bye.
Okay, moving on the agenda, a little bit before 9. Action related to the use of one-time monies for this upcoming fiscal 22. Adam, I will let you take the floor.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. As many of you know, I've been working for the town since September of 18. Worked on 2 fiscal budgets, working with Mr. Terenzini when he was here as town administrator. I got to say, this is certainly one of the most challenging budgets I've ever seen in the time I've been here, or even my time before working for the city of Chicopee. I think a combination of many factors have brought us to where we are. But what I'm coming here for to discuss with the board is, and I want to get consensus here, because I don't want one person saying if we're going to use one-time monies, well, should we be one person saying I want to use stabilization, another person saying to use free cash. I want us to have a team approach moving into this and really getting all of our information out there and to have a unified front on addressing this. These are difficult, these are challenging times. This hasn't been easy for me. I can tell you, the board instructed me to do a level service budget. I've been doing the best I can to come up with that budget. And right now I'm at, because our recurring expenses have surpassed our recurring revenues. We've done everything in previous years to balance the budget. This year, unfortunately, I don't see any way that can be done. I hate to say that. It comes to me with a disappointment, but I want to be able to say to the folks here, it's when people say structural deficit, I want people to freak out and say, oh, Templeton's in big trouble. It's a challenge, absolutely. But we have options here. We have $862,000 in the stabilization account. And then we have certified free cash, and I'm looking at 500,000 roughly left, depending on where snow and ice end up in capital. I believe right now I'm at about $300,000 of an infusion of certified free cash in the budget. That's all. These numbers are not solid. I will share with the board some, because keep in mind, I'm working on the budget, but I'm also working on the out years too, because this budget's going to set where we move when we move forward to the out years. So bear with me here. If you can see my screen, this is a part of the financial management policy, because if we're going to be using one-time monies, I had to come up with this out year projections. Now you could see my mouse, right? This was the 21 budget. Right now we're here. This is where I'm at with the budget. These numbers aren't solid. These are predictions, not final numbers by any means. This, as you can see, with $300,000 of free cash, we balance the budget. The challenge becomes, if these expenses do not stay in control, you will not see this. This is essentially the town departments being level funded. And you could see the revenues catching up. The scary part for me is I don't know how long it's going to go for. I use this projection based upon the cherry sheet that was just released today, and with state aid staying flat for a couple fiscal years and starting to come back up slowly. I was doing it on the conservative end. Now, there's good news. We're moving forward with the Baldwinville school sale. That's where you see this increase. I just put it here for revenue purposes, even though it's a one-time monies. That's a $500,000. So let's say we use free cash for fiscal year 22, and we want to keep our free cash for use to preserve our capital. We really have to look at the use of stabilization in the out years. For illustration purposes, we level fund in 23 our town departments up to 25. Granted, this is the conservative end on our revenues for the out years. As you can see here, we're looking at 205,000, 195 for 24, and 25, 83K. So we're talking 483, let's say 500,000. And then over here in this column, we really want to preserve that stabilization money that we have. Because if you're talking the BES sale, we put that into stabilization. We add our stabilization dollars we're at right now. We're talking that we'll have $1.362 million in the bank. Then let's say we use 483, we still have $879,000 in our stabilization account going out to the out years. This is not an easy time. We're not the only municipality. I've spoken to others. We are actually, I've heard people in much more of a deficit than we are. I think we've been relatively frugal. I think we've done everything we can, but it's come to a point where our expenses have surpassed our revenues. And my job is to inform you, is to prepare us and plan for this. And I've been spending countless hours on this. Bothers me just as much as all of you. But I think having this discussion now is prudent rather than waiting. And I don't want us going into the budget not having consensus and a plan on how we're going to move forward. Thank you. If there's any questions for me, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
The first thing I'd say, I don't believe that we instructed you to do a level funded budget in any fiscal year. I think that everything that we've instructed to you in the past has been the zero-based budget, and that's how your department heads are coming in. But having said that,
Well, correct. That's this budget for this fiscal year. I'm still preparing it for a service budget, Mr. Chairman. But if that service budget goes forward in the out years, your expenses are going to be, you're going to enter up at hitting a fiscal cliff.
I understand. I'm just trying to correct what you said earlier about what guidance that you got from the board. Who would like to go first?
Mr. Chairman.
Yep, please go ahead, Jeff.
Just following what Adam says, we could squeak by this year if we, in my opinion, make the error and have a level service budget and go along, because it just snowballs in the following years. I think if you make a hard choice today, then next year, as I stated earlier, general state aid is supposedly going to increase in like 3.5%. Chapter 90 money is staying at 200 million. And the first year of the Student Opportunity Act is, according to the governor, he wants to fund it this year. But then I saw a report that the state is planning a 1% reduction in the state budget next year. What is that going to mean? And can that change? Yes, it can, absolutely. I've been looking at some of the revenue numbers that have been generating all of this free cash. And one that sticks out, and this is just a sore thumb, in 18 for insurance and benefits, we had 320,000 left over. The following year, we had 238. The last year, we had 141,000 left over. And right now, I compared the second quarter of fiscal 21 with the second quarter of fiscal 20. And there's about $10,000 difference of what we have sitting for insurance and benefits, which is $825,447. So we're on pace, at least from a number perspective, to have $140,000, $150,000 left. Last year, we were on pace to have 160-something thousand, but we transferred $20,000 out at the end of the year with Board of Selectmen and the Advisory Committee. So I personally believe with more looking, because free cash, it hasn't been all of unexpected revenue. And some of this has been, we have a lot of money left over in some of these funds. So that could be tightened up. We have an ambulance lease payment that came out of taxation that this year could come out of ambulance receipts, take a little pressure off the tax base. And I'm a proponent of using free cash before we take money out of the bank. I am thinking of next year and the year after, when you have cash on the table. To me, you use that first and leave that stabilization sit. One, no guarantee that what you're going to have for free cash. No guarantee what you're going to generate in fiscal 22 or fiscal 23. We know what we have in stabilization right now. So to me, the smart move is to leave that sit, level fund a budget, and use free cash to support, knowing that if you whatever one-time funds you use this year, next year you got to find a replacement for them if things don't change. Now the state budget could flip around, and the economy could take off, or the year after. like it did in the roaring 20s after the Spanish flu thing there. But to me, the smart move is leave the money in the bank, sit, level fund, use whatever free cash we have on the table, and we have ambulance receipts to cover a lease of the ambulance. Instead of that, it's like 58 grand. It doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're counting your nickels and dimes, it's a lot of money. And I'm like Adam, I've been looking ahead thinking, you know, what happens this and this if we use stabilization. It's, you know, free cash is always an unknown. We've been building free cash by just going by the numbers, by appropriating more money than we need. It's not talking about, you know, it's not every fund, it's not every department, but there are some in there where there's been a chunk of money left over. Insurance and benefits is a big one. So my view is a level funded budget. And all you have to do is think back to 2014. It's only 6-7 years ago. They basically laid almost everybody in the town off for like 7 weeks. So, you know, you level fund, or yeah, we'll give you raises, we'll give you this, and this, and then we'll lay you off. I mean, got to make a hard decision now and be better off down the road, from my view. And that's where I stand on this. Use stabilization money if we have to. Use some ambulance receipts to cover that ambulance payment, and see what happens, because we're going to end up waiting on the legislature down the road. And that's what I have to say on that right now.
So Jeff, I got a question about level funded. So I came prepared financial management policy to talk about the use of one-time funds. I guess what I did not come prepared to talk about was a level funded budget. I know that we have been using a zero-based budget for years now. Does our FMP mandate that use, or would that be a change? Would that have to be a board vote to then instruct Mr. LaMontagne to redo his budget for this year?
It doesn't mandate that we have a level fund, but nothing says that we cannot ask or instruct them or vote for a level funded budget versus, you know, a level service. It comes down to how tight and how conservative you want to be with this budget. And you level fund as much as you can, because we have labor agreements in place that we have to pay, because we've, you know,
understood.
You do that 3 years out.
Yep.
We know we're getting an increase in Worcester County Regional Retirement. They've already told us that, to expect that for the next 15 years so they can get that fully funded. Group insurance, there's probably going to be, that's our health insurance. Even with what we did, there may be some, you know, an increase there this year. And we don't know, you know, next year what that may be. Maybe it frees up, because it really doesn't save, because if you don't spend it there, you're going to be spending it somewhere else when you have a tight budget. It doesn't save you money, it just frees it up to apply it to another expense. So, I mean, as it was a year ago, and I spoke to a level funded budget, and the board voted, majority of the board voted to do a level service budget. So it comes down to the Board of Selectmen. Excuse me. And as I said, that's my thought. My view is do a level funded. Or if you do a level service, then it's going to be a little tighter next year, unless something miraculously happens. I mean, we're kind of trying to tell fortunes here or the future, and you know, But that's my view, is to do a level funded budget and use free cash if we have to balance this budget.
Yeah. So on that point, and I did have a go back for what we said about level funded on how that would actually play out. But I tend, reading our financial management policy, it is weighted more to use free cash in the situation than it is stabilization. If you look through the language in the B section and the overall use of appropriations, it talks about free cash as one-time money for unprecedented, basically everything that Adam described. I think we all get it, that we're in a real tight spot, and it advocates for free cash over, the amount of discussion it has in it over the use of stabilization funds. So on that, I would agree with you. I've kept my ears open the past couple of years. I know that using free cash in the past to supplement, like you were saying, you use it this year, you got to figure out what you're going to do next year. And I know that the town did not do well when it did that. But again, if we're careful through this, the correct application of one-time funds, I'm warming to. I thought it was going to be a third rail. I'm kind of thinking much the way that you are talking through right now, and to follow our financial management policies. The go back I have is for a level funded scenario. Adam already has created this thing. He's got the spreadsheets. He's already met with his department heads and everything. We've already, the horses are out of the gate. How does Adam, I mean, this is open to Jeff or Adam, how then, Adam, would you apply the level funding style while we're already through a service budget?
So what I will say is I've had the one-on-ones with our department heads. I was instructed to do a service budget,
yep,
which I am continuing for this fiscal year as I was instructed by the board to do. I have spoken to the department heads, and they are aware that level funding is on the table for the out years. Now, granted, I will go in front of the board.
When you say the out years, not
yeah, 23, 24. Okay. Yeah, correct.
All right.
And because I'm so far into this right now, I think Jeff's bringing up his concerns on if we don't hold the expenses in line now, the gap gets wider. I think by preparing the department heads how I have been working with them, that let's say a raise goes up in their budget, they need to find some other place within their budget.
I know that.
And I think by having that dialogue with them and proceeding forward, it will make it challenging in the out years. But by us having this discussion now, we're preparing. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same board. We're all consistent. As you can see, I've been putting the numbers in. I've been doing everything, not just on the budget template, but on the out years and the projections. Right. Whenever I change the budget, I have to go back to the out years and try to see where that fluctuates.
I understand, but you have a number in your mind. You have a bigger number than what I believe Jeff would be insinuating for the use of free cash. Because if you also apply level funding in this scenario, I perceive, Jeff, stop me if you think that I'm putting words in your mouth, but when Jeff says level funding as a course of action along with free cash, you have to implement that somehow. You're not going to start all over. You're going to wind up using your lump sum disallow or other mechanism to basically say, not only am I going to use free cash, but I'm going to go back to the departments and say, hey, I need to augment what you had given me before, based on the scenario that Jeff would be describing. And then therefore, you're going to come back to this board and say, hey, look at these giant lump sum disallows. If we're all on board with what Jeff is saying, we're going to say, yeah, I get it. You had to go back in and make some deep cuts. What I'd like to reconcile is between both of you, going forward for the board, I think we're feeling better about the use of one-time money, but what are the other tools in your toolbox? And one of them is what Jeff's talking about is dialing it back a bit on the department's service budgets. Over.
And I will, I have one last thing, one tidbit that I'm going to toss out here.
Okay.
Looking at what we have used or what has been taken from our initial free cash certification over the years, the last few years, in a form dated September 2017, there was $196,077 of real estate taxes receivable, meaning whatever our free cash started at, that was subtracted from it right off the top, because we vote or we present the budget based on 100% of real estate tax collection, which is allowed by the law. I personally think it's nuts, but it's allowed. So we did not collect $196,000. The only way you can cover that budget to balance it out in the end, before the end of the year, before the tax recap sheet, the next tax rate setting, is you have to have it funded somewhere. So they took it off free cash. The next year, October 2018, there was $281,406 in real estate tax receivables. Again, that came right off the top from certified free cash. In September 2019, uncollected real estate taxes, $275,000 and some change. In September 2020, $369,953, almost $370,000. And plus some other, we've gotten better on our other deficits and shortfalls in other cases compared with 2017. But the uncollected real estate taxes has generally been on the uphill, going up, and that depletes your free cash. I believe if you don't have free cash, it's going to get put on the tax recap sheet on the tax rate by the DOR, because you gotta have a balanced budget. You got to pay for it somehow. It's
Right.
like debt. You know, if town meeting doesn't appropriate money to pay for debt, you're going to pay for it. So that's just, I look at that, and that's 4 years of it's been going up. We'll have to wait till next December when we do the recap sheet, whenever it's done, to see what we didn't collect this year.
Right.
Again, this is all stuff that I put into my thought process when I say a level fund budget this year. It will, or probably for sure next year, but I'd rather make the tough choice today and next year be better. But that's just mine, and that's about all I got.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Terry or Tim, any thoughts on Adam's request?
Yes, looking into the out years, we know that this year the state already tapped the rainy day fund a little bit more than some of us thought it might have been. And as late as last Friday, when we were finishing up the Mass Municipal Association annual meeting, Teresa and I both spent the better part of Thursday and Friday on Zoom conferences and video meetings that galore. I followed the financial track and some of the new selectmen track items that they had. A couple of the things they threw at us was some additional unfunded requests, some MS4 outflows, an upcoming audit within the next 4 years. They didn't give us the numbers, but they alluded to, get ready to pull your britches up. This one might be a little tough to swallow. The school came through, and Secretary Hoffman, just that morning, they came up with an additional 700 million statewide, bringing the FY20 revenues up from their projected 28.4 billion with a B to 29.1 billion, and they were preliminary estimating for FY22 at 30.12 billion, and of course that'll be dispersed among all of the school districts across the state. So a good thing with the school aid, but looking ahead, and that this was all before the governor spoke to us on Friday, but this is news now with the 1% decrease for the next coming year, and then what's going to happen 23, 24, 25. So I have to agree with Jeff. The free cash would be the way to go. Let's hold our other monies and keep them, because looking ahead, we may have to tap that down the road. But I look at this as pulling money out of a savings account. We can spend it today, but we got to think about how we're going to put it back for next year. Just my thought.
Thank you, Tim. Terry, any thoughts?
Just, we need to be careful and err on the side of caution. And again, it's a tough year. And going forward, you know, with the state level funding, we know that Ann Goby and Susanna Whip said level funded. Seems like that's going to be the way to go for us for now.
Okay. Thanks for the good conversation. You know, Adam had sent that memo, and I thought, yeah, there's no way that he's going to be able to convince me to use one-time funds in any way. I think that's not the reality right now. I know that there's also a lot of data coming out. I know they saw the MMA final docs and the cherry sheet estimates. Another one came through DLS today. I think that we're in a situation, and by our financial management policy, I think that we have the guidance, or at least the policy guidance, to be able to execute the use of one-time funds because of where we're sitting. It may be a foregone conclusion. We don't know that yet. I hope we're in tumultuous times where things can change, and you know, our state partners basically our state partners recognize the situation that we're in, possibly even the federal partners. I know that was on the table out there for a while on flow-through aid. Level funding may be a foregone conclusion, but I think that we have to look to our town administrator to be able to creatively use that power of caps and otherwise, however you want to characterize level funding. I think the tools need to be there for Adam, but not in a broad stroke. I'd rather approach that from the beginning, where all of the department heads see that coming. You know, they need, like I said to Chief Dickey earlier this evening, I wish we could get everything that they would ask for. And that just doesn't happen in a level funding situation. So we're trying to weather the storm. We know this. We know there's possible outcomes either way. But I think that level funding may occur, but I don't think it'd be prudent to try and change course at this point. You know, Jeff, you and I could argue over a beer about that on when is the right time to implement those kind of things. And I would definitely love that opportunity. But I think that one-time funds from free cash following our financial management policies is probably the prudent thing to do. So I would recommend that we give the town administrator the authority or the direction to use one-time funds from free cash to balance the FY22 budget. I'd entertain a motion or any further discussion.
Can I just ask a question?
Of course.
So we use that, and then was I correct in hearing that once the sale of Baldwinville Elementary School transpires, we'll get some of that money back because we have to replace that money?
Again, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead.
Terry, right now, we're still finishing everything up, and there's still some other things the town needs to do in order to move forward with the sale, like title and also the CPC commitment and the like.
Right.
But
We're in the right glide path.
we're moving forward with that. It's just a matter of, I would recommend to the board for the $500,000 to go into a stabilization account, but ultimately the board would have to decide that, put that onto the warrant. So that would be my recommendation. That's why I put it into the presentation.
Okay, so that's not gonna help the free cash situation. All right, thanks.
It'll help in the out years.
Yeah, it'll help, but we haven't voted on how that would play out.
Okay.
Okay, I'd thrown out a thought on that. Although either you can use what I've said, or I'd entertain a motion if you want to take action on Adam's request this evening. Nothing on the YouTube chat, in case anyone's wondering. Our audience has increased, though.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Tim.
based on the information we've received and the way Adam presented this, I have to agree with his final two sentences here, that he's seeking our opinion whether the board want to use the stabilization or free cash. I think we should go with the free cash. I will enter that as a motion.
Okay. Free cash to balance FY22 budget. Do I have a second?
I will second that.
Okay, I think both of you came on there, but I got the Terry as the second. Any further discussion? Okay, on the motion to direct the town administrator to prepare FY22 budget with the inclusion of one-time funds from the free cash to balance the FY22 budget. How do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Oh, Adam. And I vote yes as well.
Thank you. And I like that was a unanimous vote.
Yep. Okay, thanks, Adam. Moving on, we've got two more items on the agenda this evening. Next item is action related to community compact grant to fund a wage and compensation study that we very much.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This was one of the goals adopted by the select board, was to do a compensation and wage study by the town. And many of you may even know that this was a recommendation from the Division of Local Services in our financial management review back in October of 2009. We became eligible for funding through Community Compact. So if we receive these funds, it's going to come in from the state. I've submitted two of these in years a couple of years ago, and we did receive about $60,000, $30,000 to Community Compact grants coming into the town of Templeton. This would be an opportunity for us to get these done. Right now, we've been using our comparison communities, which have been helpful. I mean, it's a tool, but we could also see where the folks in town, where they're at in comparison, because we've done a lot updating job descriptions. It's just a matter of getting this last final portion of the compensation and wage study to have an expert come in and do that for us, and that would all be covered under this grant if we were to be granted that. I only have authority to go for a grant of $5,000 or less. This grant would be obviously more than that, so I need to receive the board's approval in order to submit that grant application. I was thinking of working with Holly on it. That way she gets used to going for grants as well. And these days ahead of us, I think we're gonna have to go for as many grants as we can.
Agreed. So. Okay. I move to request the town administrator apply from a community compact grant to fund a wage and compensation study for the town.
Second.
Thank you, Jeff, for that second. Any further, well, not further, any questions for Adam on that? I will say that this was part of that 2009 financial management review. One of the recommendations from DLS, their review was, I know Jeff has a copy of that. It was item number 9, to complete an independent compensation and classification survey. This would very much satisfy that recommendation. We had talked about it at our goal setting. This is going to be a very good thing for the community, even if it winds up being a shock afterwards that we have to pay people less or pay people more.
On that note, once you have that study, then you have to come up with the, if you want to go through with it, because we had this before, we'd actually paid a firm several times to do a compensation plan, but it was never funded. So we were putting people in different spots, different grades and stuff, but we couldn't give the raises, the step increases, because we didn't have a mechanism to fund it. So if we do that study, then we will have to have, whatever it comes out to be, then it's the funding process, we have to get it in place.
Was that last one done, Jeff?
Before
that financial management review?
I believe so.
Okay.
I'd have to.
So it'd be outdated anyway, right?
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying, we did that and we had all these step increases in place, but we weren't able to do a lot of it because we didn't have funding to back it up.
Good memory. Appreciate that. Any further questions or impressions for Adam? Or on the grant study, this win-win? Well, I guess the way that Jeff characterized it, it might not be a win-win, but it certainly is a part of making sure that we're providing our own science-based approach rather than just doing community comparisons. Okay, if there are no further questions on the motion to give town administrator the authority to apply for the community compact grant to fund a wage and compensation study, how do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Holly, that was unanimous. And the last item on new business this evening is an update from our town administrator related to the Templeton Professional Firefighters Local 5311.
Thank you. This is just an update on the Templeton Professional Firefighters, now Local 5311. They went through the process of the Department of Labor Relations it was filed by the union to cover all full-time and regular part-time town of Templeton firefighters below the rank of chief, but excluding all managerial, confidential, casual, and other employees of the town. Essentially what happened was we were only able to do so much, and in the sense of collectively we determined that the criteria set out by the DLR case law as to who can qualify would exclude almost all of our part-time per diem firefighters. We can only argue our case so much. So therefore, it was left, and the union was successful in reaching their certification of written majority authorization from the DLR. So they followed the process. They went through it. I worked with our team, and it just came to a point where we can only, there's a certain criteria that has to be met, and they have enough of their folks to qualify by the written majority process. And you can see my memorandum in there, and as well as the decision by the Department of Labor Relations.
Okay, so Adam, they are now a bargaining unit.
That is correct.
Okay, Well, we asked them to follow the process when we met with them last on Zoom, and they've done that, and good for them. Any impressions on that from the board? Mr. Lamontagne, thank you for that update and all the documents that are in the packet. Again, if you're watching at home, the copy of the majority's DLR finding was in there, issued on January 11th, and then the notification to the board that they are now a bargaining unit from our town administrator. So, Adam, what's next?
I have notified the accountant of the new union. So they will at some point reach out, and I will have to sit down and we will proceed forward. I think they're pretty fair and they understand that right now we're in the middle of budget season. But I will have a conversation with them and proceed the same way we proceeded with other collective bargaining agreements.
Did we need to officially acknowledge, I forget the language from our when we met with them last, I think that they were looking for a declaration from the board or an acknowledgement. Now that they have that as a bargaining unit, are we still part of that process? Is there anything that you need from us tonight based on the the documentation that we have?
I suppose you could accept my report, and they were seeking at that time a voluntary recognition.
Okay.
But since they went
I understand.
DLR,
Okay.
but I mean, you can't take action and just accept my report, and that would be, I think that they would appreciate that. I mean, they went through DLR, they followed the process, and.
Okay. Then I would make a motion that that the Templeton Select Board recognizes the Templeton Professional Firefighters Local 5311 as certified by the certification of written majority authorization from the Department of Labor Relations, and by notification of the town administrator to the Board of Selectmen on 12 January. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jeff. Any further discussion on just recognizing the Templeton Professional Firefighters Local 5311? Well, I certainly look forward to working with the 5311 in all of Adam's sleepless nights. Fantastic. Okay, hearing no further comments, questions, or impressions on the motion to recognize Templeton Professional Firefighters Local 5311 as certified by DLR and notified by the town administrator, how would you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Tim?
I will abstain based on my disclosure form and looking at the verbiage in the agreement from the DOR, specifically the all full-time, regular, part-time town of Templeton firefighters below the rank of chief, but not excluding managerial, confidential, casual, and other employees of the town. That falls under that disclosure.
Thanks for that, Tim. Abstention noted, and I vote yes. Congratulations to the Local 5311. Okay, that was our last item for new business this evening. I do not see any old business. Before we go into board member and staff comments, do we anticipate any need to go into executive session this evening?
We do not need to go into executive session this evening.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I will just quickly kick off the comments by saying that I had an interview with Jared and Tara from DLR about where they had an interview concerning the 2009 financial management review. They wanted to talk to the chair. They wanted to talk to the accountant. They I wanted to talk to the assessor and Adam about this list of recommendations. There were 25 in all. The three primary ones were create a town administrator position. Done. There are a lot that were based on the fact that we did not have a town administrator. So a lot of the primary ones we checked right off the block. There was a list of things that we still have, we're 80-90% or we're working on it. But overall, they were very impressed over the past 12 years for the progress that we've made. The nice thing was that what I heard from both Jared and Tara, that their meetings went on longer than they anticipated. I met with them for about an hour and a half when they thought we were just going to talk 30 minutes. They were very well received. They got a lot of good data. I'm pretty proud of the way that the team not only handled their re-interview, but from the team of the town over the last 12 years to basically make these things possible or set the conditions for fixing some of these others. And our Roselli audits pretty much are in line with what that financial management review found. Emailing expenditure reports, developing that financial team, entering into intergovernmental agreements, limiting the use of your free cash, completing long-term financial planning, all these kind of things. We had very good things to talk about, especially our bond rating, which I believe it's still at AA3. Adam, does that sound right? Or were we just upgraded?
We went up. We upgraded.
See, it's even getting better by the minute. So that's all I had for this evening. Who would like to go next, if you have anything?
I have a comment concerning the intermunicipal agreement with Winchendon as far as animal control, and being how even and I mentioned this a meeting or two ago. It's budget season. It's something that financially affects Templeton and Winchendon, and I would just like to have that put on an agenda to discuss it. And my aim would be to give for the board to vote to give Adam the authority to contact Winchendon. Hopefully Keith Hickey will still be there. I know he's supposed to leave, but I'm not sure exactly when. And to get that cleaned up and done correctly. So when we start the new fiscal year, we have an agreement in place, be it a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it may be. And it's done correctly with no questions, as there is one right now. And other than that, I have some budget stuff, but it'll wait till the next meeting till Adam gets his stuff together.
Thanks, Jeff. And we definitely can put that on a future meeting. And Adam has got I think he's got at least the financial strategy worked out with Chief Bennett. So he can probably speak to that once we put that on a future ACO agenda item. But thanks for that. Appreciate it. Terry or Tim?
I'm not sure how to phrase this. I have a couple of questions. Maybe I can schedule an appointment with Adam So I've been receiving some emails about zoning on 881 Patriot Road and 831 as far as it's not business owned. So I don't understand the whole thing, but there's some questioning as to the oil tanks that are at 881, and there's some trailers being brought into behind the storage unit, I think it is, at 831, and the resident wants to know if we have zoning laws, why aren't they being enforced?
Yeah, if you get the details together and Adam, if the more detailed report that he has, he'll be able to not only leverage what he knows, but any of the department heads that can offer the right answers to that. Adam, are you willing to do that for her?
Terry and I work on quite a few things, so Terry, just follow up with me on it.
Okay.
Mind if I just share the screen really quick? You can see. On the rating for Moody's.
Oh, roger that. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, if you could just follow up with that, Terry, on that, that would be fantastic. Terry, did you have something else? Okay. Tim?
Yep, real brief. I had mentioned earlier the MA conference. A couple of the sessions I attended. One was leading through challenge. And it was interesting because about half of the hour-and-a-half session was focused on COVID-19. How are people reacting, responding to it? Believe it or not, we're in a lot better shape than some bigger towns. North Andover, for one, where one of their recommendations and something they were proud of was having a skeleton crew to keep their town hall partially open. And I kind of chuckled to myself because on a good day, we have a skeleton crew at our town hall when we're at the full boat and the doors are wide open. So believe it or not, we're actually in better condition than some folks want to agree or think that we're at. One of the things that they threw out there that made me think about it was negotiating difficult conversations about workforce diversity. And it just, a couple things clicked in my mind. One of the takeaways of that was the for resiliency committees. And a few communities in the state have it. They're willing to share a lot of information. And I'm still digging and reaching out and waiting for the contacts I made to get back to me so I can give a little more detailed presentation. But this is just sort of a previews of coming attractions and just put us on an even keel and on level playing board with some other communities equal and even larger than us. But it's not going away. Diversity is here to stay, and we need to be working our way into it if we're not already.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. Certainly a different MMA conference this year. It was, in person last year, you're a captive audience. When you're trying to go on Zoom, you got snow falling, dogs barking, work and stuff like that. So it was almost like a harder conference to go to this year. But I'm glad that you and Terry seemed like, I'm not sure how much you got to do, Jeff, but it sounds like you and Terry were tag teaming some of those courses. So that was certainly a good thing. And thanks for the impressions on the conference. Adam or Hall? Oh, go ahead, Terry.
I was just going to say I attended the one on water and the PFAS situation, and somebody from the Water Commission was going to reach out to our water municipality just to let them know that, because sometimes smaller communities can't afford to follow state regulations, so they can file for exemptions and they don't have to test for everything that the state would mandate, but there are grants out there. And so they said that they would have somebody contact Templeton just to get a feel for how we're doing and, if we needed any help with any of the testing regulations that are coming down. And again, there's a good book out. I forget the author of it. I should have it on my mind. Cast. I happened to find it on audio, and the next I got it, I started going through it, and it happened to be on Oprah's #1 book list. But, all those tough things that Tim was talking about, Black Lives Matter, the situation with Indians in the United States, and mascots. I also want to give a shout out to the school committee. They had a brilliant session. I listened to it today. It was over 2 hours, and that is up for discussion, and it's state mandated. I know Charlie Baker just changed something on our state seal that was offensive. I've read 3 books on that situation: Indigenous History of the United States, A Mine Laid Out on the Ground, and there was one other one. It was after braiding sweetgrass. So I've actually read 4 books on that. And then for Black Lives Matter, there was one on just mercy. It kind of touched on how our prison system started. It's not, they are tough things to talk about because it affects the history of the United States. And a lot of people get offended. But if you really tell the truth and do your research and fact check, there are some things that we need to own up to. And one of the things that's coming before the United Nations is Indians want to be declared as a nation, as nations. There are several different Indian nations with their own names, and they want to be recognized as such. And they're also saying want to be recognized for the genocide that occurred to them when we came in through Manifest Destiny, the Doctrine of Discovery, Papal Bulls. I mean, I could go on forever about all the things that have happened and that we need to correct. And they did make a comparison to, believe it or not, Nazi Germany when Hitler ordered the genocide of the Jews. And those people that followed Hitler didn't want to admit that. They just believed in his cause. So there are just things that are going to be changing in the United States. And I just hope that I would encourage people to get a library card and really look at some of the different perspectives that are out there that, I know. Need any suggestions? Because boy, my head is swimming. Right now I'm listening, before I see Hamilton, the musical, I've got a book on Alexander Hamilton. And if we thought things were tough in the 1800s, the 1700s, sorry, I know.
Before 10.
I know.
I'm gonna break Team's heart. I got to give Adam and Holly a couple, at least a minute.
I'm fading fast too. Sorry.
Adam or Holly? Nothing heard from Holly.
I'm usually pretty good at unmuting. I apologize.
Yeah, I know your mute button challenged.
But I just want to say, I think it's been said before that we're Templeton tough. We have our challenges, and we'll proceed forward and take it on one day at a time. That's all we can do. And thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Okay. Any go backs? We are at the end. We have no executive session. Our next meeting is February 10th. And that's all we got tonight, folks. Thank you as always, for all the time and research that you put into your efforts on this board. I certainly appreciate it, and I couldn't do it, or we could not do it without each other's overlap. So thank you again, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? We are adjourned. Tim, it is 9:59.
It is Mr. Fittich time. Good night.
All right, folks.
I know you get that.
Good night. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Hannah.
Thanks, GCTV. All right, good night.